I've seen what the episodes are going to be like. Oh yes, I'm really off my June, what you want me to do a temporary fight Terry, no, my watch has stopped. June, it's 9:32 on October 31st, 1992.
Come on!
Stephen, what's
I can't be bothered to national speed limit. I'm sure you find my answers to this a bit of... I think you know, that's why I'm asking you national speed limit. Miles per hour. My God! I don't believe it. That's right, that's the national speed limit. 60 miles an hour. They weren't asking that question, but...
What is a red triangle with a red board around it? I'm sure you circle. An ambulance at the sea.
Many cheap laughs, I suppose.
It's people we've never heard of, isn't it?
As usual, people we've never heard of. Actually, next cigarette hands. I was too embarrassed. It was quite exciting having the hair by them for me. Yeah, well, I was quite excited by that.
Where is she anyway?
Vanessa coming tomorrow morning, Vanessa and Brian.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Yes, that's when you always start smoking. Don't count anywhere. About the same time as you vomited on people's video recorders.
Oh, Simon's on the vodka. Simon's on the vodka now.
Perfectly reasonable behaviour.
What's the damage on the vodka? Is any good? Not bad.
Because you're not going to understand a bloody word. No. So it is.
In terms of revenue, well, this is a nice meeting.
No, I'm afraid not. It's not aimed at them. He'll cook a brave new world and he'll go, I'll take the next generation. Blasphemy.
No, we'll get some Arsenal. We'll take the deal step on our guy. Stop things rather than
answer any questions.
no pictures. It's got so many.
Yeah, he asked Daniel Brown, I said Daniel's good stuff.
Actually,
Well, we drive.
Who's this?
This doesn't make it so bad, you know, about being students.
That one. And of course, and the point is that all the blocks are different sizes, so bear that in mind.
Does it matter how you put it on top?
Well, no, they've got to be crisscross, but it doesn't matter what order they go.
Is that the right one, right? Yeah.
No. Actually, we can put a caption in that one. We can put a caption on top of that one, a think bubble.
I play Mekon, don't I? Fucking hell's that? Oh,
that is it.
what was that one? Rhea Richmond's crotch.
Really? Take it out the other side.
It looks like it to me. Taken by me.
Right. I don't know the answer to this next one, so just like you guys, your left hand thinking sewing. Well, that here, the answer is Jamie in the field of space. Those with the right hand up, still, and those with the left hand, exactly.
When you reckon it
Right, I said earlier this morning in introduction that with some guests making the first appearance at the British Convention and certainly through the next panel. You've already been given a clue with the video we've just shown, the City of Death Part 1. And I'm not the sort of person to spoil someone's thunder by taking away the announcement. But maybe I could sing a few notes, a few la-las here or there. Your interviewer for this panel is Mr. Gary Russell.
I'm not going to go into any fancy introductions after that, Gordon. I couldn't top it. Will you give a very warm welcome to Lal Award? It's a bit difficult. You've done a couple in America, haven't you?
Yes, I've done more than that, I think. Maybe all a long time. It seems like more than that. Yeah.
They're much bigger, aren't they, than a lot of British ones?
Yes, some of them are. Some of them are quite small, kind of campus type ones. The biggest one that I've done is the one in Chicago, which is huge. That's brilliant. Can you hear everybody? Yes? You can. You're in the front. Can people at the back? Yes. I mean, are these actually on or anything?
Yes.
They are.
Yes. Do you find it a bit strange that it's
Yes,
now...
I do.
Do you like... do you find it a bit strange that 10 years on from doing Doctor Who, here you are at a Doctor Who convention, still peripherally involved in it, doing conventions, doing interviews for magazines. Is it something that when you left Doctor Who you thought, that's it, finished with the programme, or did you somehow think, I bet I'm still associated with this in years to come?
I honestly didn't think about it either way. I mean, it doesn't at all surprise me because of course, by the time I joined, one knew that Doctor Who was the kind of programme that people did go on watching for a very long time. So it doesn't come as a particular surprise. I mean, I didn't consciously think when I left, in 10 years' time I'll be in Exeter talking to you lot. But it's not a surprise because the programme is that popular.
Are you pleased?
Yes, I'm very pleased. I mean, it's nice being in Exeter talking to you lot.
What were you actually doing when you first were asked to do Doctor Who?
Very good question. I can't remember. Probably nothing.
Fine.
No, actually, what I was doing was I wasn't acting. I hadn't been acting for a while for various reasons. I'd gone off and done some illustrating of books and things like that. And I didn't really want to do any acting for a bit. And then this came along, and it was just such a nice part. And I thought, well, you know, this would be a nice way to come back and do something that'll be fun to do, and also for kids and everything, which it very much was at that time. It was good timing, you know. It was something I really wanted to do at that time.
You started off, your first Doctor Who part was Princess Astra in the Armageddon Factor. Were you then quite surprised when Graham Williams phoned up and said, we'd like you to come back as the new companion?
Yes, I mean, I was surprised because partly, really not until after we finished the Armageddon Factor, which was around Christmas, whatever year it was, Mary wasn't sure that she was leaving. And she simply hadn't made up her mind, and she didn't know, you know, whether she'd stay on or go or whatever. So at that point, there wasn't even a part for sale, as it were. So the fact that Mary left was a surprise to begin with. And the fact that I was asked to do it was a very large surprise. Yes. I mean, I think it was probably Tom's idea, because I don't think Graham would ever have thought of using a character he'd already worked with. But then I think he thought, well, rather than getting a lot of people in to audition who'll read 3 lines, how nice to audition someone over 6 episodes, and that he knew I was good enough, and that I got on well with Tom and the rest of the team. That was a rather nice way of doing it, and it gave them an immediate sort of peculiar opening story to change this character around and everything. I think worked quite well, really. Do you? And they had absolutely no ideas at all. And I said, well, I thought the Doctor was so unbelievably egocentric that the thing he'd go for was the nearest thing to himself. So that I better wear his actual clothes, you know, something very, very similar to, and look exactly, which is why I sort of covered up the face and all the rest of it. And I thought that was quite a good joke. I mean, it seemed to me to be a very simple way around the problem. And I rather wanted to wear that costume the whole way through. I mean, not obviously the hat under my nose, but the actual coat and having everything too big, you know, sort of Charlie Chaplin, everything wrong. Which they didn't like at all, which is why it turned into the pink version of it, which in many ways was obviously much more practical, except for that impossible scarf, which was kind of silky and caught on everything, and Tom has practiced with his for ages and was wonderful, doing the swoosh and it unhooked, and mine was always kind of catching on everything. It was awful, it's a nightmare, and I wished I'd never had the idea.
One of the biggest traits, really, of Romana was the astonishing wardrobe that she managed to get through. How much influence did you have on Romana's costumes?
About 150%. I mean, the design, June Hudson was one of the designers, Amy Robinson, they were marvellous designers, and they used to come in and say, Lala, we sort of see you in, and it was always the silver lurex catsuit. You didn't wear it in the last one, we sort of thought it'd be awfully nice if you wore it in this one, and you'd say, I would say to them, it's a wonderful idea. Really marvellous. I sort of saw myself in school uniform. What do you think about that? And they were always so sort of faint with surprise that they gave in. And that's really how it worked. And I kind of convinced them, you know, that what you wear, unless of course you're stuck in air hostess's uniform for the whole thing, like poor Janet was, because I think by the time they finished with me, there was no budget left for costumes, and she was representing me to use allowance. But what you wear, if it isn't a uniform, is very much a part of your personality. And they expect you as an actress to use that to play the part. And they were very nice on this particular programme, sometimes they're less nice, about letting you do that also in what you wear. And I thought that she was the sort of girl who'd kind of go around markets and pick up bits and pieces here and there, you know, and sort of buy things in peculiar shops and then put them all together. And this one was doing that, not only going to different places, but going through different times and eras and centuries and God knows what. It meant one could do the most wonderful mixture of sort of peculiar bits and pieces within one costume, which, in the end, I mean, all the designers rather liked because it was more fun for them and they could break all rules and blame it on me.
Did you have a favourite and a not-so-favourite costume?
I don't know, I have to think about favourite. The not-so-favourite's easy, and that was because the first programme, the first actual story that we shot when I became Romana was The Creature from the Pit. And I can't remember why we shot it out of sequence, but in any case we did. That was the first one. And I truly loathe that costume. I think it's absolutely awful. And the reason that it's absolutely awful is because it's got the silver lurex catsuit underneath it. Well, it was at that stage, I mean, I hadn't worked out what I wanted my character to be. We started fairly soon after. I'd been playing Princess Astra. I didn't know, I wasn't trying to do what Mary had done, or particularly get completely away from what Mary had done, but neither had I come to any particular conclusion about what I wanted to do. And so one was kind of, you know, you weren't strong enough in your own mind to decide that this was completely wrong, which looking back on it, I think it was. I mean, at least I got that sort of floaty job put on top of the silver lurex catsuit. But, I don't know, I just think it was wrong for the way I wanted to be as Ramon, looking back on it. I don't know about favourite. Favourite was usually whatever was warmest and most practical in some quarry somewhere. You know, you regretted terribly if you were in high-heeled shoes in a swamp, you know. So it's a question of comfort, and then when you watch the stories later on, then you can assess. I rather liked, I know the stories are totally popular, but I like the riding outfits in Swans and Iron quite a lot. Those red gloves are good.
And presumably the idea of walking around very cold Brighton Beach in half a sailor costume.
I quite like that actually. That was because, I don't know, I wanted to look like a kind of Victorian postcard, you know, when I was kind of striking out. I quite like that costume, it was quite fun. It wasn't, as you say, particularly fun on Brighton Beach, but it was survivable, just.
Some people, I'm not naming any names, but some people would probably think that a schoolgirl costume was a bit kinky.
That was entirely my decision. I'm to blame for this kinkiness, but I didn't see it like that. You see, I thought that as a child I'd absolutely loathed wearing a school uniform, and I didn't have a very nice one. It wasn't nearly as nice as that. Sort of grey and boring. And I hated it. And because I felt Doctor Who was a programme partly, if not entirely, for children, it'd be rather nice to wear something that children basically loathed wearing and choose to wear it so that they could then say, oh, well, I don't mind wearing school uniform much. You know, it's quite nice because she wears it on Doctor Who. I'll put up with that. And that was true. I got lots of letters from children saying, we don't mind our school uniform anymore, it's absolutely wonderful. I also got a lot of letters from their dads saying, "Caw, school uniform." Which I hadn't thought of, I mean, really hadn't crossed my mind, because I'm incredibly sick.
Going back to when you first got the part of Romana, were you given any guidelines as to what they wanted you to do with the part, or was it a completely clean slate and they just said, play it like down the wall?
Well, I did say to Graham, you do realise, you know, I cannot play it like Mary Town because I'm not glamorous like Mary Town. I mean, Mary's got this wonderful sort of, she's really good at playing that sort of glamour girl thing, and it's something I can't do. I mean, I can't be bothered actually to work so hard at looking so good. And not that Mary has to work hard at all at looking so good, she just looks good, you know, but it was a whole sort of personality that I'm simply not. So, I mean, and he accepted that, and we agreed that really there was no reason for me to be like her, any more than there was any reason for Tom to be like John Pertwee, or John Pertwee to be like Pat Troughton, because Time Ladies, presumably, can be as totally different from each other, even though they're basically the same character as a Time Lord. So, you know, I kind of thrashed around a bit in the Creature from the Pit with that Silver Lurex catsuit and the matching performance to go with the Silver Lurex performance. And then it kind of evolved, you know. There was never a particular conversation about, you know, we do feel you ought to be a bit more so. They just put up with me.
You also, during your time, had an interesting array of monsters to come across, such as giant green... You just bought my next question. I was going to say, what's your favourite monster?
My favourite monster, I know. That's the favourite question they ask me in America. What's your favourite monster? Tom Baker.
Is it difficult working with people in rubber suits when you go through rehearsals and you see them as...
I tell you what's really difficult is for a person in a rubber suit to work with someone in school uniform.
Well, I think the rapport that built up between you and Tom.
Yes.
How early on did that? I mean, was that something that just clicked straight away with Armageddon back to you thought we work well together?
Yeah, we did work very well together. I mean, we got on very well together, and I was better at the Times crossword than him, which was a very, very good start. And I read more than him, which was a good start too, because he was kind of impressed, you know. He was quite hard to impress, Tom. He was very intellectually sort of superior to a lot of people and kind of put downy about things. Enraged when I used to use them at the Times crossword, but enraged in a kind of rapport type way. So yeah, I mean, we got on very well from the word go. It was a very good team on that first one. Mary and I got on extremely well. John Leeson is just gorgeous. I mean, it was sort of a very happy team, and I suppose maybe Graham felt, let's keep it together as much as one can, you know, carry on in this way, which has obviously worked.
So did you, with this rapport with Tom, and presumably to an extent with John Leeson and Douglas Adams and Graham, did you have an awful lot of input into the script, or did you just get a script at the beginning of rehearsal and by the time you came to shoot it, you just did it?
No writers here on scripts, no. They never dared come to our read-throughs because they knew everything would change. It did change a lot, simply because, you know, I think the writers expected that, and they knew they couldn't write specifically for our personalities and the way we were. It evolved in rehearsal, and by the time I got to the studio, and everybody says, did you ad-lib all the time in Doctor Who? We never ad-libbed in Doctor Who, because once you get to the studio, there simply isn't time for sort of experimenting in that way and mucking about. It would be nice if one could have ad-libbed it, but it was never like that. By the time we got there, all that stuff, which looks quite ad-libby, was rehearsed to a fine point. But it was certainly, a lot of it was done by us at the time. And that worked well, and people like Douglas Adams encouraged that and wanted that. And Douglas, I suppose, probably wrote better for us than anybody else in the set, maybe because he knew us very well. Business about it being predominantly for children is a moot point, and some people don't feel that at all. I mean, I do think in my day it was probably more angled towards children still at that point than certainly it is now. And whatever anybody's aiming it at, a lot of children watch it. And there are certain things that I think it's hard on the parents to put them through things that are going to give their children nightmares. And the specific one that leaps to mind is I found all those bodies lying on shelves in a state of decay, horribly scary. And when I went into that set in the television centre when we were filming it, there were all these horrific sort of shrunken bodies on shelves, and this gurgling sort of blood thing in the floor where all the kind of plumbing was going through. And I looked at this thing and I thought, Christ, I'm going to have nightmares over this. I know about a 5-year-old child. And then they said, oh, well, we'll light it very darkly, you know. But I mean, I don't think they probably would have lit it quite as darkly or kept off those horrible things if I hadn't made a fuss. And I seriously thought, you know, we'd get parents writing in saying, you know, do you mind if this is put on at whatever time in the afternoon it's put on? And my child is now waking up in the night screaming because it's sort of, and I think these sort of programmes up to a point, they have a certain responsibility.
How much influence then over the making of a programme and a long-running thing like that, you and Tom as the two people who are in it constantly, week after week, do you have a great deal of input into it?
Well, Tom obviously more than me, I should imagine, because he had far more to do, and he'd been doing it for far longer, and he knew far better about everything to do with it. Not really, we're actors, you know, we're paid to do our job and our part of it. And inevitably, because it's your face that's up there at the end doing the things, the input is enormous to do with your part, and as I've said before, to do with things we said, and occasionally to do with things like hating a particular aspect. But overall, it was the producer and the director and the writers who were responsible for what happened. So if you didn't like some of it, it's not my fault.
Right, I'm going to pause briefly and throw it open to you. If anyone's got a question for Lala, stick your hand up. Paul's got his hand up at the back straight away.
What was it like working with Gary Russell?
A nightmare. I mean, a real nightmare.
Next question. Thank you, Paul. You're dead.
On the same subject, why didn't you do the Schoolgirl Chemistry course?
Why didn't we?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was nothing to do with me. I don't know. I mean, I suppose it was a one-off story. They never ever thought of it. I don't know. I mean, I think those Angela Brazil stories are great. I think it would have been nice to have done a series of them. But clearly the powers that be didn't have the same idea.
Another question about Doctor Who. Someone? Oh, well, I'll go back
Total
to
silence.
you. Go back
Come
to
back to me. There's one there.
All right, Alan.
Why did you eventually leave the series?
Because I'd eventually had enough. Because, I mean, basically, that's true. There's really, as the companion, and I suppose as the Doctor, there's only so much you can do that's helpful and positive and creative and moving forward. And there comes a point when you've run down so many corridors that you don't know how to do it a different way. And the scripts, although they're different overall, become repetitive in terms of the things you can contribute. And I think there comes a point when it's good for the show as well to have some new faces. And when John Nathan Turner took over as producer, we had a conversation at the beginning before I did the second series, my second series. And we both agreed at that point that rather than leave at the end, like Mary did, you know, sort of not being sure whether to stay or whether to go, and then just being, being sort of cut off, you know, with no particular story, having written one out, that it would be better to take a decision at that point as to when one was leaving and have a story specifically written so that one left it for a reason. And I think that was the right decision to take and probably the right time.
You also had the pleasure of taking the dog with you. Was that partly your influence? Because you were very keen on K9, weren't you?
I'm very keen on K9. I know lots of people aren't keen on K9, but no, I wasn't keen to take him with me. I mean, he doesn't sit in my flat or anything.
Oh, you spoiled all the illusions.
My flat's not in East Space. That's probably ruining it all. I thought it was sad not to have K9 in the series, and in many ways I think he should have been left behind. If he was going to go, I'm glad he stayed with me and didn't go to that as his dog's home, wasn't he? But no, I think he was a popular part of the series for some people, and an unpopular part of it for others. I don't know what other people think. I mean, John couldn't bear him, I know, Nathan Turner, and thought he was sort of an irritation, and I don't know, maybe he just felt that he had his day. That was just one of those executive decisions that actors have no input about. So as he had to leave, I'm fully glad to stay with him.
Did you find actually the physical working with a prop like that doesn't move particularly fast and is remote controlled, was it difficult at all?
No. I mean, I liked it because it meant I could go slower, you know. I didn't have to run at top whack down all these corridors because there was K9 doing. So I was saying, come on K9, come on K9. Oh K9, come on. You know, there's various ways you can say that line. Get a move on K9. Faster K9, you know. But it meant that one could take it easy, which was nice. You could sort of sit down, drink a Coca-Cola, have your lunch, and K9 would still be fine. Which suited me fine, because I'm really not the athletic type. You know. It was working with mechanical people like Tom Baker that sometimes made it much more difficult. I mean, I remember in the Paris one, we did lots of shots running in Paris, and he's got sort of legs 10 miles long and can go 100 miles an hour. And then it was, come along, Romana, faster, Romana, come on. So I rather like K9 because he was sort of on my side. You know?
At that point in Doctor Who, when you were in it, the world at large in terms of science fiction, Star Wars had come, Close Encounters had come, special effects were suddenly becoming something that people knew about, they knew how they were made. Did you find that Doctor Who then had to sort of try and catch up with the film world, and if it did working with special effects in that way, in any way inhibit or affect the way you work?
Well, I think suddenly audiences were beginning to see what could be done. And if you're doing Star Wars and you've got 3 months or 6 months or however long they spent on doing special effects and miniatures, you can achieve something pretty spectacular. And Doctor Who at that time, which coincided with John taking over as producer, I think suddenly became more conscious of keeping up with the Star Wars Joneses. And it could have gone either way. I mean, I rather would have liked it to have stayed itself and not felt that it had to do that and have gone on with that stupid thing in the middle of the TARDIS going all the way through scenes and things sticking and things going wrong. I mean, I always found that part of the charm of Doctor Who, but I know a lot of people who found it completely and utterly charmless and boring and irritating. There was a sort of middle patch when the BBC still hadn't acquired as much of the technology as it now has, and some more stuff and so on. When it was an awful struggle because we didn't have the money, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the resources, we couldn't conceivably keep up with what Star Wars could do. But we were kind of making the effort, which I slightly felt between two stools, you know, it all looked a bit kind of desperate. But I think now, I mean, because there is all that technology, it does so extremely well. And of course television screens in any case are different and tiny compared with big screens. But I think it had to evolve. I mean, my idea of it staying the same is actually hopeless. Things have to move on. And I don't know, I mean, you know, when we started, Doctor Who and Star Trek were really there were not that many science fiction things around. And almost, it was coincidental that we were in space. We were basically about people. I mean, some of the people happened to wear rubber suits and look like monsters, all through uniform. But you know, it was almost immaterial that one was going through space. It was sort of much more to do with people. It then shifted and became more to do with the technology, and the dialogue became more technical to all our costs. It became much harder to learn and trickier to understand. And I suppose that was a sort of natural evolution which had to come about in that time. Particularly modelled time cone isometry, parallel bust into the image translator.
Moving back a bit from Warriors Gate, Sharda had all the potential to be a really brilliant story, had a very good cast, lots of exciting location filming, but of course the strike happened and we never saw it. Were you disappointed by this? Did you think it had the potential to be a really good story?
Yeah, I mean, we all were. It was wretched. The whole thing was utterly miserable. We'd rehearsed for ages. We'd shot one whole studio. I can't remember that, but it was a 6-part, wasn't it? So we probably would have had 3 studio sessions on it, of 2 or 3 days each. And we'd certainly done one whole studio, which is tough. You know, it's hard work, and you do an awful lot of things. And we'd rehearsed, and we were ready to shoot the 2nd studio. And we went into the studio. I don't think we even got, I'm not sure we even got to the stage of getting into costume. But anyway, we were all there and we arrived at 8:30 in the morning and we were all sort of standing around and suddenly plugs get pulled out and the lights go off and everything goes dark and you just can't do anything. And all this work and all the effort and all the footage that's there and all the filming in Cambridge that we've done, which was lovely. I thought that was actually one of my favourite costumes. You know, it was all sort of for nothing, and it was a good script. It was fairly complicated, and I did see it when I went to do one of the conventions in America. They put it together with sort of captions and computer graphics and stuff, roughly to show how the story. You know, there'd been a bit we'd shot, and then there was a caption to explain what happened next. All of which was terribly useful and explained all sorts of things I hadn't understood at all when I read it. And it was a very good story, as you say. It was a very good cast. There was that wonderful little sort of globe thing that's kind of been on the that, you know, with the top technology for that sort of thing had begun to work well. And it was a horrible disappointment. It was very sad, and I was delighted they used a bit of that stuff in the Five Doctors. It was nice eventually to see it being aired and used because it was good that time. That's horrible. Those sort of things that are chopped off in their prime are always hateful and unhappy experiences. Going on, it has a life of its own. Without you, you feel kind of strange about it, and it's quite hard to watch. And it's no good sitting there saying, well, of course it's better when I was in here. Because it sounds terribly kind of egotistical, which of course I am. But I didn't really know.
Now, apart from acting, recently you've, well not recently, quite some time now, you've been doing illustrating and writing books. How did that come about?
It's really more is how the acting came about, because originally that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw, and I meant to go to art school. For some reason I went to drama school, and I really don't know how that came about. But it's always something I've done, and it's always something I felt combined, you know, quite well with the acting, because it's very, very different in the sense that it's work that you do entirely alone, and it's you motivate everything yourself. And as far as doing books concerned, you have the idea, and you go to the publisher, and you write it, and you illustrate it, and you do all the work. Which is something actors don't ever have unless you're Stephen Burkoff or something doing a one-man show. Basically, you're entirely dependent on a casting director and a producer and a writer and 20 million other people. So it's very nice to have another job that is a one-man band. And they go well together. I mean, slightly it happens that one takes over, you know, and there was one point when I was for about 2 years. Which I think in the long run is not terribly helpful to one's career. I think sometimes you have to be a bit more single-minded about wanting one thing in order to get it. That's sort of the recent past, as it were. I mean, that was exciting to do. It was a wonderful part, and of course one feels sad that it didn't have a longer life, simply because it's very nice playing a part that's so good, working in a company that's so good. And I think it would have done all right in London for a bit, but it was a sort of 1930s Frederick Lonsdale comedy. And nobody likes them anymore. They just hate them. They're saying, oh God, you know, it's all out of date, and morally it's so tame and boring. And the fact that audiences howl with laughter all the way through it seems to be completely immaterial. So it kind of dies its gentle death. And we had 6 weeks of great success in Leicester, which was fine. I mean, but in the end, it doesn't matter. You've done the job, and you've played the part, and you've worked with a terrific company, and that was its lifespan. Don't write criticisms anymore, where they're serious bits of interesting writing. You just get some person who's sick to death of having to get on a train to Leicester to see some bloody play that he absolutely loathes, and comes back thinking, oh God, what a waste of time, and writes, you know, a sort of jaundiced piece before he started because he'd been to the theatre 5 nights before that week, and he's had enough. I think some of them are like that, and some of them, of course, are not like that. But I think they have a responsibility now, because I'm afraid to say they're taken much more seriously by the audience, who read a review and think, oh God, I'm going to waste 12 quid on a ticket to go to something that costs to go and see that. You know, if he said it's no good, I won't go. And that's a pity, because people are less left to make up their own minds.
Do you go to the theatre a lot yourself?
I go into bursts. I mean, sometimes I'll go to 2 or 3 things in a week, and then I won't go for 6 months. I don't go that much. I go to the movies quite a lot, and I go to the opera quite a lot. But I don't that much go to the theatre.
Do you sing? Don't see yourself as the next sort of, I was going to say priority, but that'd be a bit different.
Thank you very much. God, I only have one slice of toast for breakfast. I mean, I can sing if I have to, like in Hamlet. I can sing, all right, but I don't see myself as the next Kylie Minogue.
Oh, we've got Stock Aitken Awards lined up for you, ready to produce you and turn you into a #1 superstar.
No, I don't see myself as that.
Twin Peaks. We mentioned this upstairs.
I love Twin Peaks.
Do you think you'd like to be in Twin Peaks?
I'd love to be in Twin Peaks. Thanks heaven. I didn't know it was a big hype, you see. I switched it on, you know, they repeated that first double episode. And you know, it was quite sort of late, and I think I was doing some embroidery for my book, and I thought, oh, well, I'll switch something on, you know. And I sort of watched the tail end of whatever went on before it. And then the credits came up, and I'm sewing at the same time. Usually I kind of have to be half watching, you know, half doing that. So I suddenly sat there and I was watching it. I was totally glued to it. It was wonderful.
Doesn't happen very often in television these days.
No, I mean, it's just so kind of clever and weird. And it's not so weird that you feel alienated. It's just wonderful. Does anybody else enjoy it here? I love it. I slightly went off it when I found it was a sort of great hyped up thing that everybody was watching, and I thought I was the clever one here.
So who do you think killed Laura Palmer?
I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, I don't actually think that's. It's almost not the point, you know. It's just. I know we don't find out, do we, till the next series? Tom Baker. Tom Baker. No, I don't know. It's almost immaterial. It's so fascinating to watch, and the shots are so quirky.
I think it was suicide.
What?
I think it was
You
suicide.
think it was suicide? God, it's a long way to do it. Slogging around with someone in a rubber suit and a quarry in Dorset. It was more fun. So we had long conversations about different techniques and stuff, and there he is now doing Star Trek. Quite fun.
Slugging around with the masters of his own.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, you know, Patrick Stewart's great ambition at that time was to be in Star Trek. I don't know, but mine is not particularly to go to erotic. Oh, if I was asked, I'd be jolly flattered and probably go, but I don't work it out in advance as an ambition, because I was likely to be disappointed, I think.
Can you work your life out? Choosing the career you've chosen, do you have any control over it at all? Can you sort of say, in 6 months I'd like to be able to do such and such, or is it really living day by
Well, you
day?
can say it, but nothing will happen. I mean, no, it's living day by day. That's one of the hardest things. I mean, it's awful, I think, for actors, because you never really can work out particularly. I mean, if you are with a big company like the RSC or the Nationals, and presumably they sit down and have conferences about, you know, if you're a company, next year you will do this, that and the other, and I suppose, I don't know, maybe that's how it's worked out, but if you're just going from job to job, I mean, when I got the part with Edward Fox, I auditioned for it on Thursday. They rang me on Saturday to say I'd got it, and I started work on Monday. You know, and so you can plan absolutely nothing. 1 minute you're happily getting on with the book, and the next minute suddenly you're thrown into rehearsals from morning till night, and you're up in Leicester. You know, I mean the whole thing is absolutely haywire. And I envy people who are in professions like, you know, opera singers who know what they're doing in the year 2000. And people think that's, I mean, some of the ones who've got that think it's tremendous pressure. They know that in the year 2000 they're going to be in Covent Garden from March until July or something. I must say, I think it's wonderful. It's jolly nice to be able to, you can't sort of have holidays and things like that. Except, I mean, sometimes one does, one gets on a plane and goes off, and you know that'll precipitate a call that says come back, and it always does.
So is it quite nice then when you were doing Doctor Who that you were able to say, right, well, I'm going to have a 4-month break in 6 weeks' time and I can plan my life?
Yes, it was. I mean, that is one of the things that's nice about, and I can understand why people become hooked on being in a series and working non-stop, because although the bad side is it's a bit like going to your office, the good side is that you've got the office there and you can go to work every day and you know where the next lot of money to pay the bills is coming from, and you have the security of knowing that it's going on. And that's very seductive. I mean, I can see why people stay in Coronation Street or something for years and years and years. It's difficult to get out of the womb, or stay for that matter with a company like the RSC. It's very nurturing, very nice to be in that way. I've never done it for any longer than on Doctor Who, and I feel that it's a different way of working. You know, you don't then get the downside is you don't get the chance to keep on doing different things. And you do, in this country anyway, become terribly associated with just one thing. And you can never, it's very hard to break out of it again. You can do it in America, you can do a series and go straight into another series. You can be sort of Stephanie Powers jumping from heart to heart to whatever else. You know, they don't seem to mind it there. But here, it's very difficult. Once you're associated with a series, you're stuck with that image for a very long time. Whatever the series, even if it's not as successful as Doctor Who, it's quite hard to get away from, unless you're Peter Davison. Well, my favourite's the Paris one, really. Not just because of the end product, which I think is a good story. I mean, it's such a bizarre story, isn't it? I mean, some sort of strange thing about people making copies of Mona Lisas and going back to talk to Leonardo. And I love the kind of surreal kind of madness of it. I mean, David Lynch, shoot your heart out. But the whole experience was lovely. I mean, you know, being in Paris doing it was fun, and it was a marvellous cast, and just everything about it was very happy, and I think it shows, and the whole thing put together as an end product was one of the better stories, I think, in the time I did. Unfavourite one. I wasn't mad about my last one, actually. Maybe just because it was my last one. It's always rather kind of rending yourself away from something, you know, to finish it off. And I thought it all slightly petered out, and I'm pottering off at that part that came in.
Did you actually understand the script?
No.
No.
Did anybody else?
You did the rest of the world. Right, anyone else got a question for Lala?
Did you enjoy working with marsh spiders in the first film?
Yeah, I like Full Circle Fight. It's quite good. Mostly the monsters and all the kind of those characters in it were fun to work with, because it was always slightly odd, you know, because you worked in rehearsal. Either with nobody there at all, somebody just reading in bits and pieces, or just nothing. So that when you got to the studio, it was all new, and you hadn't seen the costumes properly before, and it really helped, because you had something new to work with that was kind of surprising and unreal, and that was fun for the actors, and it sort of kept you alive, kept you going. All of the characters like that one worked with were enormously helpful for us, because you can do such odd things, you can behave so normally with something that's so bizarre, you know. It gives you endless scope for interesting ways of tackling perfectly straightforward dialogue, which I like.
In that story, you got covered with these funny little marsh spider things. Are you frightened of spiders? Do you have any sort of phobias that you want to pick up on and say, oh,
phobias?
Anna's terrified of heights, let's stick her at the top of the
I'm not bad
Eiffel
about heights, actually. Well, I don't mind things like the Eiffel Tower, because you're kind of closed in and you feel reasonably safe. Getting on a chair to change a light bulb, I'm not bad enough. I don't like heights. I don't mind heights if there's something to sort of protect you. I can't bear kind of walking along the edge of something with a sheer drop. That completely sort of throws me into thought. And there was a certain amount of that in Doctor Who. I haven't really got phobias about anyone.
Another question. Yeah.
You did say that you've recently watched Doctor Who, so there must be some still interest in it, and the fact that you've come here for the first time, I believe, in 10 years, which I must admit I feel really, I think it's great. But what I'd like to ask you is, with this Doctor Who flown over to America, they bought the rights to make a film. How do you feel about that? Do you think we hear lots of rumours, and I believe now in the latest that they've changed the storyline because there are so many rumours going around, that they've had to go around it and start again?
Yes, I honestly don't think about it, because it's been a kind of ongoing non-situation for so long, this movie that might or might not happen. And it's certainly nothing that will ever affect me, because they'll never use me in it. And if they do it well, I should be delighted, and if they don't, I should be cross. I mean, it's quite simple. I hope they do it well and somebody enjoys doing it, and it seems to me to be a marvellous opportunity to use terrific special effects and make something. I slightly think they've missed their timing on it, personally. I mean, I think it's a bit late in the day, and I think they should have done it in, you know, the heyday of its popularity, and that would have been great. But then maybe they wouldn't have been able to do that because one would have so much been watching it on television. Maybe it is right to wait till near the end.
Perhaps use it for nostalgia purposes, like Batman, etc. They seem to be bringing back what we grew up on, really, don't they?
Yes, I mean, it's. I suspect if they do a film of Doctor Who, totally disassociated people will be part of it, who know nothing of the history of Doctor Who know nothing of the kind of build-up of the life of Doctor Who, or what the fans feel about Doctor Who, and the whole thing, the whole sort of culture of Doctor Who. I rather suspect it'll be in the hands of people who want to make a lot of money and have their specific ideas and their impositions onto the subject, and to that end, I rather think they won't do it well, but I mean, one doesn't know. I hope they do it well. Good.
When you were doing the series, did you have a lot of contact with fans?
Actually, when we were working?
Yeah, I mean, were you aware of sort of the big fan element and fan clubs?
Oh yes, because I mean, by the time I joined, it had been terribly popular for a long time. Sometimes people used to come into the studio. And Tom and I were terribly fussy about not allowing children, for instance, to come into the studio when, you know, we never, for instance, let them look inside the TARDIS to see that it was just a boring old box, or watch the chaps inside the Daleks shuffling around in their socks, you know. I mean, I'm actually terribly against all these programs and things that tell you how everything is done all the time. I think it takes away all the mystique and the fun of things, and I don't want to see the workings of everything. We try to keep the mystique of these things.
Right, another question.
There's one there who's been desperate to get one in Bridges, do you want?
Did you enjoy playing a vampire in Vampire Circus? And how did it compare to State of Decay when you watched to play a vampire in State of Decay?
I wouldn't mind it being a vampire in State of Decay. Vampire Circus, well that was the first film I ever, that was the first job I did after leaving drama school. And the thing I liked most about it was when I was at drama school, there was one class, there were two classes on Saturday morning. One was fencing, which I'm not putting up fences, you know, which I absolutely adored. And the other was what they laughingly called tumbling, which was learning things like hitting people over the head with chairs without knocking their brains out, and sort of vague acrobatics of one sort or another. And I hated this class so much that I got really good at the fencing class, so that I could do double fencing and skip the tumbling class, which I simply loathed. It was my only way around this conundrum. So then I got Vampire Circus. And the character of Vampire Circus is an acrobat. And B.H. Barry, who was our teacher, who arranges a lot of fights for films and things, I saw, maybe I'm still at drama school, I got the part, I can't remember. Anyway, I saw Barry and he said, what's the part you're playing? I said, well, it's an acrobat, actually. And he said, well, good luck. You'll be thrilled, won't you, that you went to all those classes tonight and worked so hard. Anyway, off I went to Pinewood for 5 weeks to do this film. And I came back, I went especially back to the Central School to see Barry afterwards, and I said to him, you know, it's wonderful when you have a double to do absolutely everything. All I ever had to do was jump 2 inches off what they call a pancake, you know, one of those little sort of square things, sort of go boing into shot. And that's all I had to do, and then someone else would go whoosh, and do all these wonderful things, and I thought, so I rather enjoyed that.
Nick?
There wasn't a lot. Actually, I wasn't mad about Matthew Waterhouse. I wasn't mad about the character. I thought he was an absolute pain. I felt terribly possessive, you know, about being the Doctor's companion, a boring boy trotting about after it. I could have done without him, personally. He was alright, he was a nice enough kid really, but I thought Adric was a pain in the bum, and I thought, I don't know, I could have lived without him altogether. And one became terribly sort of bossy and sort of prefect at schoolish, and I hated that, and I didn't want to be that. And I found myself being it, and being kind of, you know, grown up, kind of pushing this child around and stuff, and I just got pretty bored with the whole business.
Is that from yourself, from the script?
Sorry?
Was that from yourself or from the script?
What, the attitude to him? Yeah. It was kind of in the script, but it was kind of inevitable. You know, you've got this brat hanging around the place, and you sort of just want to go all the time.
Why didn't you?
I did. Often.
Paul?
King's Road, it's quite a wide street. There was a woman pushing a very small child in a push thingy. I mean, a child of about 3, probably. So it was pretty small, and I was rather impressed that this child should have recognised me, because suddenly I heard this voice from the other side of King's Road, which actually practically stopped the traffic, saying, this little boy saying, "Hello, banana!" So I always thought Romana was banana. It's really funny.
You didn't feel compelled as a result to sort of start wearing yellow costumes?
I'll peel off in the King's Road, no.
Another question.
Did you get to see much of Paris? You can see there, or was it bad dash?
I was a mad dash. I mean, I've been to Paris before, so fortunately I wasn't going there as a sightseer because, I mean, it was crazy. We ran everywhere. We ran mostly through all the scenes, literally, because we were running. We ran from location to location. We ran onto the minibus. We ran through makeup with the powder puffs going on the face as one went by. You know? It was pretty speedy. We saw a bit from the Eiffel Tower in between snowstorms. But it was May the 1st, I remember, because they had all those May Day parades and stuff they have everywhere. And one time it was snowing so heavily, you know all that blossom, there was all this blossom on the trees, that beginning with that cherry tree, I think. Cherry pie. And then it was sort of snowing in between, you know, there was one bit we couldn't shoot from the top, they were down at the bottom shooting us up at the top, they couldn't see the top of the Eiffel Tower for a sort of snowstorm, it was the most peculiar weather. And a terrifying moment in one of the scenes where we ran from the middle bit of the Place de la Concorde, across the traffic, and out the other side into the Tuileries Gardens. I can't tell you how scary it was, and Tom had hold of my hand, and it was like a sort of joke cartoon, you know, one was practically off one's feet, kind of flying behind, with this traffic sort of going, zoom, zoom, past us, all right, it was so scary, and we did about 5 takes on that. I really thought we'd never survive. But the French won't stop for anybody. I mean, things like pedestrian crossings mean absolutely nothing. I don't know why they're there. They're there to say this is the place where you're likely to be killed. So, I'm really called Sarah, but I've been called Lala since I was naught. I've always been called Lala. It's just one of those incredibly boring baby name stories, you know, about not being able to say Sarah properly. Blah, 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 blah. And it turns into Lala. And I've always been called Lala.
So you decided to use it as a stage name?
Well, I wasn't going to bother to change my name, mostly when people change their name just because someone else called that an equity, and they're not allowed to have 2 people with the same name in equity, because it causes great confusion. So since there wasn't likely to be anyone else called Lala Ward, it was easy enough just to stick with it.
And it's quite memorable.
Perfect.
Another question? No? Yeah.
How did your family and friends react when you found out that you were going to be in some kiddie science fiction series on TV?
I don't think my family, I mean my parents, I don't think knew what it was anyway, so they were just pleased when I got a good job. I don't know, I think my friends were quite pleased. I mean, in a way it was all kind of softened down by the fact that I'd been in the 6-part Armageddon Factor in the first place, so they all kind of knew I was part of it, and I don't think it came as a vast surprise that one was kind of go on with it for a bit. No, I think on the whole people were pleased, really. And it was all pretty kind of crummy. There was a sort of thing of paper, like one of those rolls that you get in a calculator, and that was supposed to give out all the information. I mean, that never worked. But that's actually what I really loved about Doctor Who. I thought it was wonderfully crummy at the time.
The actual scripts for Doctor Who, I mean, when you get them through the post, and you sit down and you read it, do you think...
Read it through? No.
Well, exactly. Did you sort of think, what is this all about? Or do you think, oh yeah, this one, I can see this one's going to work, so you know they're going to shoot this?
No, you used to think, I absolutely know, before I open the first page I'm not going to understand what it's about, so there's no point worrying about that. And then you just, no, I mean, seriously, you read it through, and that's probably the last time you ever see it in a consecutive order, because after that you work completely out of sequence. Mainly because most of the sets, you know, are so huge in Doctor Who, like something massive inside of a spaceship or a hallway or something. So you'll shoot all the scenes they'll build maybe 3 of those sets in the space they've got in the first studio. So you'll rehearse and then shoot all those scenes first. And then they'll strike all those sets and they'll build the next lot, simply because there isn't space to build them all. So you never shoot anything in any sort of sequence whatsoever, which is very much like filming. I mean, that's not particularly a problem. And you get to a point where you're sensible enough not to keep asking questions. You know, if you start saying, now, what happened before I did this, and where am I coming from, and where am I going to, and hang on, if I've done, and you sort of think, oh, forget it, you just play the scene, get on with it, it'll be fine, and it'll fit into some sort of context when it's all put together, and it always does. You know, there's no point thrashing yourself into a heap of worry, thinking, oh God, is the continuity right on this, and am I in the right mood for it? Absolute waste of time. because it doesn't work that way. It works, in fact, from its complete kind of chopped upness and the fact that you can, when it's put together, it seems, and you just go where you're told in the end. I mean, there's corridors, you know, where half the time we're running up the same one, but they've moved a bit of stuff in it, and you think, oh, fine, I don't know which bit I'm meant to be in. I'll go right, you're there, Lana, and you end up there fine. It's made by a friend of mine who's a sculptor, basically, but he makes this wonderful jewellery called Andrew Logan. He used to do that thing called The Alternative Miss World. And it's a sad story why I'm wearing it. You want to hear it? Well, it's one for sorrow, you see, one magpie. And it's because my friend Jill Bennett, who was in the play I've just done, has just died. So I'm wearing it for Jill. She was the most wonderful, gorgeous actress. And my real sorrow about the play not coming into London is I suspect if we had, Jill would not have done what she did, which was commit suicide. Not because of the play not coming in, but if she'd still been working, she would have been too professional to go and do it then. So she might have hung around for a bit. Anyway, magpies for Jill.
Staying with that theme very slightly, final question from me. This weekend is in many ways a tribute to Graham Williams.
Yes.
What memories do you have of Graham?
I mean, I just feel, you know, he should be here, sitting here, and we should be sort of meeting again after a while and having a good time. First of all, I mean, his going is so sudden and so awful and so wasteful and so stupid and so utterly tragic that it's not just like someone dying, you know, it's the same with Jill, when it's so utterly pointless and shouldn't have happened. One feels all sorts of emotions that you wouldn't if it had been illness or old age or something. You feel anger and rage and all those sort of things. And my memories of him are of the sweetest, nicest. I mean, it's so nice when someone asks you about somebody and you don't have to think, oh my God, I'm going to think of something nice to say about him. There is nothing nasty one could possibly have said about Graham, ever. He was wonderful to me. I mean, he gave me the part in the first place, so I should always thank him for that. He was a marvellous person to have as a producer on Doctor Who because he was so unlike anything you might imagine of being a producer on Doctor Who. He was so straight and gentlemanly and mild and sweet-tempered and just a major calming influence to have around. A wonderful foil for Tom because he never fell for all that sort of bamboozling and bluster and all the stuff that, you know, Tom was notorious for and was like. I mean, he was a huge, larger-than-life personality, and someone like Graham was the perfect person to kind of say, you know, without ever getting on the stage, and as such was a wonderful producer to have on Doctor Who. Just there, and your producer is your captain of the ship, really, and when you've got a captain of the ship who is as strong and creative, you know, I mean, he was a jolly good writer, he had tremendous input into the series, but never in an overstated, always in a gentle, understated way, and that's something that one is very lucky to get on the programme, and he's certainly one of the nicest people I've ever worked with, and I'm very sorry that he's gone.
On that note, Nana, I know you'll be back later this afternoon, but for now, thank you very much indeed.
We're filming our books for. Here we go. This is a book.
I can show you. Right. Oh, fine. Sort it out. Look at me. Ah, scream. Baby, better than that.
Secondly, a writer who wrote for William Hartnell twice and Patrick Troughton once. He novelised in the last few years all three of his books for Target Books. Mr. Ian Stewart Black. If I can push that microphone sort of that way, to upset everybody, hopefully pick both of you up. Right. Ian, I'm going to be very rude and go straight to Chris. I'm leaning across you. Chris, you directed what is probably one of the most important Doctor Who stories of all time because of the way it pushed Doctor Who into the success that it is, the Daleks. Now, you must at some point have got this script that asked for Daleks. Did you ever have in your mind what they would look like, and did they ever look like anything that they finally appeared to be?
I think the image that one got, and I'm on record saying this elsewhere, is that one wanted them to be metallic monsters that glided, unlike the traditional idea of a robot, if you like, that in those days used to walk. We've come used to now with motorcar factories having robots that glide, but in those days robots weren't known as gliders, they were stumblers. And the image of the Georgian state dancer, a troupe of dancers from the Soviet Union, who had the most fantastic gliding motion, like the wind in the reeds, they used to glide across the stage, was the motion one expected to see from them. What they actually looked like physically, I don't think I did have a clear mind about. I mean, the Terry Nation script made certain things obvious, the eye, the sucker and the gun. But for the rest, it was up to us to scribble on the backs of pieces of paper, things like pepperpox.com, backs of envelopes, and Ray Cusick eventually came up with the final object as we all know and hate today.
How did you get into directing in the first place? And why?
I'd always wanted to be a film director. I have directed film, but I've been known as a television director rather than film director. I started my career as one of Mr. as he then was, Michael Hawkins' young gentleman leading studios after the military service, and progressed up the ladder and eventually went to the BBC as a production assistant, now taking as production manager, and gradually got little bits of directing and eventually got to being a director. It had been my ambition all that power. It crystallized, I wrote as co-author when I was still working legally. And incidentally, I was working in the script department, although production was what I wanted to do. I co-wrote a thing called Our Mari, which was a story on the life of Mari Lloyd, which was done on BBC television by the Variety Department as a live transmission from Studio G. And as one of the writers, I was invited to the studio to watch the rehearsal. And I went up into the gallery of G and saw the director, who was Michael Mills, sitting there with all these monitors in front of him, calling the shots. And that was when I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Well, that's not quite correct. I wrote my first Doctor Who because my children didn't believe I was a writer because I hadn't written any Doctor Who. If only writers here, let me tell you how I wrote my first Doctor Who, because it will show you how inconsequential a writer's progress can be. I wrote for an American company. Americans used to come across quite a lot. We were much cheaper writers, directors, actors than they were in America. And I wrote a sort of ghostly, thrilling half hour. I forgot what it was called. But it was seen by someone at the BBC who said, this was very exciting, could we get hold of this bloke to do a series, an 8-part series, which I went to see. And Alan Bromley was the producer, and I had a great respect for him, so I thought, right, I'd like to work with him. Went along and I did this Ransom for a Pretty Girl, and while I was doing it, I was in their production office. It's as casual as this, and on the door was written, the front door you came in was a side door, and on the door was written, Doctor Who. So I said to Alan Bromley and the other chaps, and I said, are these the Doctor Who people next door? And they said, yes. I said, I'd like to meet them. Now in those days, very, very few of you were born in those days. My name was on the screen more or less every week. And they came in delighted to meet me, and I was delighted to meet them. And I said, any chance of doing a Doctor Who? And they said, Did you really do it? And I said, yes, I have a special reason. And that was the reason. And I said, none of my children think I'm a writer because I haven't done a Doctor Who. So they said, have you an idea? And I said, and I told them the basic idea of what I call the white savages in those days. BBC, for some reason or other, knocked off the word white and just called it Doctor Who and the Savages, which Chris directed. I told them this, and they liked it, and I did it. Now, it's as haphazard as that.
Where did you get the idea for the Savages from? What sort of sparked off the story?
Well, this is a confession. I have to be very careful I don't get bored with what I'm doing, because if you get bored yourself, you will bore your audience. So you've got to tell your story at 2 or 3 different levels. The level of excitement, of the car chase, of the danger, of the hand pulling the curtain back, all that. And at the same time, as far as I'm concerned, and I think for quite a lot of writers, there's got to be another level. Now, I don't normally tell people this because I'm going to use 2 words that the English don't really like very much: philosophy and poetry. If you have a poetic or a philosophic idea, something as simple as the exploitation of man, which was at the heart of the Savages, although people didn't actually, nobody sort of absorbed this, or if they did, it was, in passing. There was still the excitement of what was happening. But here was a most admirable, desirable civilization, artistic, kindly, wonderful, but it was built on something so corrupt, because they had discovered a way of abstracting the essence of spirit, of life, or whatever it was, from the savages that they kept like cattle. And that was and I never told the BBC, the directors, the producers, or anyone, in case they said, oh, that's a little bit too deeply down. But always, in my
recollection is that I followed the savages with the rescue, or the rescue of the savages. No? It's the Romans with the...
It was the rescue followed by the Romans.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
He's done his research. I'm only relying on memory, which is pretty tangential.
May I say, it's a very worrying thing that everybody here, everyone I've met, knows far more about Doctor Who than we do.
Yes. It wasn't usual, no. And I can't, for the life of me, in my mind, I'd reconcile this to the 2 programs I just mentioned, one of which was a 2-part and the other was a 4-part, making a 6-part assignment, which made much more sense than what you've just mentioned, which was 2...
It was a 2-part, right? No, it was 6 episodes.
It was 6.
Rescue was 2 and
well, I
Rescue
suppose
4.
that is the same reasoning then, as far as management's concerned, was that here's, one director can tackle 6. We don't want to hire a director to do 2 because it's much too long preparation period for what we're going to get out of him. It'd be much cheaper if he does 6. I mean, I can see that the reason. I can imagine, although this is in the mists of time, it must have been harder for me and for my production crew to have to consider 2 programs at once, because you're obviously thinking in design terms of 2 different lots of entirely different lots of sets and characters and themes the same way. I can just say that Dennis Spooner said to me years later, he said, when you read my scripts, the only thing you said to me was, why did you do so-and-so? You didn't say, what a lovely script. Well, I must say that I had known Ian for quite a long time before we came to do this, and I think it was the first time I'd ever done anything, directed anything by a writer I knew beforehand. So that was an original plus for me, so I was very excited to be doing it.
Is that quite a help? So by knowing Ian, you could turn around and say, what does this mean?
I think that there always seems to be a conspiracy in television. Certainly directors feel this, and I'm sure writers do as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that the producer's trying to keep the director and the writer apart. Do you ever have that feeling? I have, certainly, over the years. It takes a good script editor sometimes to let the director and writer speak to each other directly rather than doing it through him. So, yes, I mean, I felt I was doing something written by a man who was well known respect. And it was very exciting. Actually, I don't remember that we met up apart from this or anything very much. I mean, the script was straightforwardly well written and easy to direct from that point of view. I don't remember, unless he didn't, any particular hang-ups.
I was just very pleased with Chris.
It's nice.
His career at that time.
What memories do you have of William Hartnell?
Of a kindly but sometimes irascible man, an extremely good actor, a very disciplined actor, a man who, if he respected you as director, would not often question what you would ask him to do, a man who found it, having been quite a leading light in supporting character roles in British films, found it quite difficult, I think, to turn to the weekly turnaround of television, and in those days, what was virtually live television. Learning lines was difficult for him. One thing I have to say, being honest, was that I found he had rather right-wing views on coloured immigration at that time, when we used to rehearse in the London Transport Underground training depot in Wood Lane, where a large proportion of the trainees were black West Indians, and he sometimes would embarrass one by his remarks there. But that is not my overriding impression, but I have to make it just to keep the record straight. No, a very nice man in every other respect, very generous at times, and he got very well.
Did you ever meet him?
Yes, yes.
So do you find yourself writing your script towards him?
When you write for an actor, or when you write with an actor in mind, he sort of runs through your brain. You don't sort of deliberately devise it. But say in comparison with Trout, who was both of them were excellent actors. I think the first time I was aware of Bill Hartnell was a tiny little scene he did in a British film called The Odd Man. And in it, he probably was on screen 2 or 3 minutes at most in a 90-minute picture. And he played the part of a bartender who was under great strain. And in that short space of time, I was so aware of this, and I thought, who is a bloody good actor? So when he became Doctor Who later on, and then this occasion arose to write him, I was very pleased because, although he was, I agree, he could be irritable, and he would be irritable with some of these young actresses that he didn't consider totally professional, because that was a series that used to pick up people fairly unknown and turn them into stars, semi-stars. And I think that every now and again he felt mildly irritated that, in a sense, he was carrying some of them on his back. And but he was such a good actor, and I have to admit that this means a lot to me. His professionalism excused, as far as I was concerned, any sort of personal attitude he might have to the rest of his cast. I liked him. I didn't know him very well. He just took the script and he acted it.
Did you actually meet him at any point while
on the screen, on the stage, on the once or twice down the. I used to make a point of not going down to rehearsals. Directors do not want the writer at rehearsals. He's a bore and a nuisance, and he might object to changes they're making. And but I remember seeing him a couple of times. Probably during, once during the Savages, and I think once during the War Machines. In fact, I might have seen him a couple of times during the War Machines.
Right. Mentioning the War Machines brings me very neatly on to that story, which you had the rare distinction of writing 2 consecutive stories.
You told me that earlier. I had no aware of it.
And on top of that, not only did you write out Stephen in Savages, but you also had to write out Dodo in the War Machines and write in Ben and Polly.
I think they probably asked me to do that because they knew that the actors and actresses would be frightened of me and they wouldn't complain about it. But this is something nothing to do with the quality of the story. It's just something in the politics of the way they're running this particular series. To know them and have a new affection, so they continue with whoever was writing the next series, they'd have two ready-made characters there. And if you still have your previous hero or heroine, there's a certain amount of loyalty or conflicting loyalties, and so it was as well just to, do the surgeon's cut. That's the theory, but in all probability someone might have said to me, look, the contract finishes Tuesday. That's it.
Probably not.
To break into television, and he was a friend of the story editors. Later on they were to team up together. Jerry Davis, that's right. These two were to team up together. And I think Jerry Davis was very carefully nursing him along, and this seemed to be quite a good opportunity to chat to Kit, who was a very clever scientist, and the two of them did quite a good series later on, and out of it came the idea of the post office tower, and they said, well, and do you think you can get computers in it? I had no idea what computers were, but I read up a little and thought, well, it's not really a computer, this war machine, but if you say it is a computerized version, and you have enough sort of fantasy about it, no one's going to say this is a load of rubbish. So we did that. They seemed to like it. It was happening. And Who was really being put to the test, so that when he comes to the bit, he's got to use his brain. And everybody there watching knows London and can say, no, he couldn't do that, or yes, he could do that. That's quite clever. It was, and I found that interesting to try and cope with.
Brilliant. Chris, moving back to you. After that, after you did the Savages, your next Doctor Who was Patrick Charlton's first story, which again teamed you up with the Daleks. Do you think there was any particular reason they suddenly thought, he directed the first Dalek story, we'll get him to do this Dalek story, or was it purely coincidence?
No, I don't think it was entirely coincidence. I think I always thought we'd done a good job on the first Daleks. I was available. They knew I'd worked with Patrick Troughton before, and they wanted somebody simpatico again for his first story, and I think things therefore fell into place along this line. I was very happy to do it because I had worked with him before, we were personal friends, and it was a very happy relationship.
Do you find Daleks difficult to direct? I mean, whereas in a human you can say you walk down there and you go through that door, with Daleks is a little...
Well, there are mechanical problems, yes. I think, the obvious thing in camera rehearsal is you're telling the camera, and that Dalek over there, which one? He says, well, the one on the right. Well, there are two on the right. Yes, well, number three. The point was they didn't have any distinguishing features unless they were a black one or something. So we did, in rehearsal, hang cards around their necks with numbers on, so that you could write on your camera script, a two-shot Doctor Who and Dalek 3, and the cameramen could then instantly frame up on that two-shot rather than having to have the conversation I just described, which was time-consuming. The heat inside them and their inability to see where they were going was always a problem for them as well in the early days, which made it more difficult to rehearse with them and use them. The inevitable problem of synchronization between their lighting keys and ping-pong balls on their roofs, on their heads that lit up, which was obviated later, I believe, by electronic devices which automatically synchronized. Very difficult, and because one was a stickler for getting it right, there were times when one wanted to do retakes because they got so out of sync. You had two Daleks talking and you weren't quite sure which one was talking because the lights were also going on wrong or bit. Whereas you wanted to give the presence, the feeling that one of them was perhaps dominant over another. Just go into that archive, anywhere at all. And it's available for rental on video or whatever, and it's sold all over the world. I mean, the BBC, it's probably, as Ian said, it would certainly save money. And because the BBC was a corporation, not a profit-making company, BBC Enterprises used to sort of sell a few pens and ties and things, but they weren't interested in making big money. And had they hung out there, they would have been selling. As you know, there's been a certain success cult, in fact, in America, Doctor Who. eager for anything they can get. Just an awful lot of it isn't there to be got.
Can I add to that? You know, I don't feel at all bitter, but from every now and again, I get from the United States royalties for Doctor Who and the War Machines. Now, sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's quite a lot, and I think to myself, I should be getting 3 times this amount. I should be getting it for the Savages and for the Macra Terror. But no, you know, if I were completely destitute, then I suppose I would be bitter.
You mentioned the Macra Terror. That actually started life, the Macra obviously, as we know, are big crab-like things, but it didn't start as crabs, did they? They started as insects.
More or less.
Why was the change made? Was it your decision?
No. The changes like that are made in the Department of Special Effects, I think. They say, oh, well, we had a couple of insects lately, why didn't we have a crab or two?
Yeah.
Something like that. But they landed themselves in a lot of trouble, because I gather that in order to make the Macras, they had to build this on top of a jeep. Is that right?
Yeah.
So they had this huge crab-like animal built on top of a jeep, which was stuck to my insect man. It would have been a long piece of problem.
I had insects in Newton.
That could be it.
Which one came first?
The production company said to me, they said, we have now got Patrick Troughton playing the part of Doctor Who. Unfortunately, I thought Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, I said, I'll stick my neck out and say, I thought they were the 2 best actors who ever did Doctor Who. That was a personal thing. But they said Troughton is very different from Devon. He's skittish, his qualities are comic, bizarre, unpredictable, totally different. So I thought, well, and they also said, we'd like to do something like, distinguish it like playing a pipe. Or, I don't know whether it actually, whether it lasted. But I thought, now what sort of an area can I have that's going to bring out these qualities? And it struck me that if you had this false Butlin type, of course, don't forget it was you know, holiday camps are quite different now, I understand. But these were the days when they did all this party, yes. And so I thought if you set it in there, then you'll give Troughton a chance to play against it and do all this mockery and skipping about and inconsequential stuff that's going to give him what he can do well. So I thought, well, I'll try that. They liked that. I just loved it.
Would you say it's like your favourite thing you've ever directed?
Careful.
Among them, I say. Yes.
And then you came back a year later and you did the mutants with the insect people.
That's right.
That again was as different from the demons as Ian's savages and war machines, because you've gone away from modern day Earth and you're on an alien planet and everything. What do you think works best in Doctor Who? This idea of the aliens coming to Earth and seeing them in familiar places or going off to alien planets?
I think it depends on the script, but as a basic rule, I've always found it exciting, as Ian was suggesting earlier about Post Office Town, to have an ordinary, everyday situation recognizable in your own community, invaded by some horrific force. I always remember the John Wyndham story called The Midwich Cuckoos, which was made into a film, which also took place in a stupid little English village. It really had the hair creeping on the back of their neck. The kids next door suddenly develop blonde hair and black eyes, and they're going to come and get you. I've always been interested in the everyday, the creepiness of the everyday situation. But that isn't to say that in any way I decry the foreign mechanic situation at all.
Your next Doctor Who was quite a breakthrough for Doctor Who for a variety of terms. Firstly, you introduced Tom Baker as the Doctor in Robot, but also it was the first Doctor Who that said, forget film cameras, we'll take outside broadcast cameras out to do all the location work, which was quite a new thing at the BBC generally. Was that tricky? Was that very difficult to adapt?
No. It meant that one had two cameras to shoot with instead of one as far as the exteriors were concerned, because filming units were normally one camera. On the Demons, because of one particular sequence, which was tricky and there was an awful lot of dialogue involved in it, I had stuck my neck out, taken out 3 film cameras, crystal linked together, and used them as I would use studio video cameras. The normal rules have one camera. So here I was on a location, quite a lot of location material, with 2 cameras, which I could either use in conjunction to shoot static dialogue scenes, or I could leapfrog one ahead of the other so that we could set up the scene in one place with one camera, send the other off to the other place. As soon as we've finished one scene, we dash over to the other camera and get on with that, which meant you could get more work done at a time, which wasn't still camera. It was an in-house joke, really. I think we decided to have this transmogrification of the Doctor into as many guises as possible. The recognisable faces of the Doctors who had immediately gone before since the series started, but then we wanted to put a whole lot more in of people who, faces that he might have been at one time or other in the millennia that he'd existed. And then somebody said, well, how many do you want to have, say 8, and that's going to be so many pounds for 8 actors to come and do it. And then it grew in the office. I don't think I was actually the villain of the piece, but I certainly got swept up in it, that we should try and get people around the office who worked on Doctor Who to do it. So we got people like me and Douglas Camfield's there, and I can't remember the name of him. Bob Holmes is certainly there, and there are a whole lot. Anyway, all the faces there are people who have worked or were working on Doctor Who around the building at the time, and we built the sequence up in that way, just with these fleeting glimpses.
What were they? Were they potential Doctor Who's of the future?
Of the past. He was going back in his personality. It was a sort of intellectual slanging match where the Doctor and this hideous creature, the brain of Morbius, were gripping a metal framework, and there was a sort of area of ectoplasm up above, into which pictures appeared what they were thinking, and they were trying to Pelmanism each other down, sort of thing, with their thoughts, and all these images kept coming up. They went back and forwards for a start, and then Doctor Who got the better of the monster. Pertwee got the better of them, so all his images were appearing rather than the monster.
Rather like playing a game of cards, you know, and your face happened to be one of the trump cards.
That's right. And we apparently got into a bit of trouble with Exeter rather than their actors hadn't been hired for it, which is perfectly reasonable. I think a donation was made to the charity or something. Anyway, it was a nice even joke from Albany.
Finally, to the Doctor Who's of the 60s, I would certainly be very...
Obviously something popular. What exactly do you mean by, if you could get back to Doctor Who of the 60s, what is your ideal then of Doctor Who?
Well, I think I've suggested part of that. I think that I did some work in Australia. Because it was a co-production, I had to use Australian writers. This is 71 to 76. And the first time I was out there, I didn't know any Australian writers. One of them who talked very well, and I thought he had potential. He showed me something he'd been doing, a filming company. And in it, people were talking together, and suddenly they jump in their car, and they race to someplace in Sydney, and another car is racing after. So the finish, I said, why did they knew where they were going. Why did they have to do this car chase? I thought that's good.
Yes, it's not so great.
No. But so, if we could get it back to the 60s, put my name down.
Right. Has anyone got a question? Right, Jeremy.
You don't count.
I've got to ask this to both guests in relation to what both of you were saying just a few moments ago. There's Ian, you've been both lauded and accused of writing one of the most frightening Doctor Who's of all time in Macroterror. And Christopher, you were supposed to have directed one of the most frightening black magic stories of Doctor Who. Is there a technique in television, in writing, to chill, to frighten, to actually put people on the edge of their seat? Is there a technique for directing to achieve that effect?
Technique, I think, is the wrong word. I know that this is going to sound ludicrous, but there have been occasions when I've been writing something by myself, in my study, in my own home, perfectly safe and sound. And I can write something and my skin prickles with fear. Now, if you do that, you've got a chance of transmitting it. It's not a technique. It's rather like, you know, your fingers touching. Is the stone rough? Is it smooth? It's an instinct. I suppose you can cultivate it, but it's an instinct. Be careful using this word because it sounds elitist and I hate to use it, but it's a gift and you are not responsible for it. You've just got to be grateful for it.
The sort of underlying themes of in quotes, do-gooding, if you like, although I don't put it that way, were much more worthwhile than that. I mentioned the word pantomime earlier. I think that I don't know whether the script came before the casting or the casting before the script. Sometimes I felt that people were being put in, stars in quotes, put into the programme to give it some sort of quality which I abhorred, frankly. Hands up who thought that was a good idea, good story.
You have to.
4.5 in this room. Okay. Congratulations on finding something worthwhile in it. I just thought I couldn't bear it. I didn't stay with it long enough. Perhaps if I'd stayed, I'd made it 5.5. But it just seemed to parody itself completely. And it wasn't frightening, didn't keep me, okay, I'm older now, I'm a big boy, but I don't think I would have sat on the edge of my chair as a child or hidden behind the sofa or gone halfway up the stairs and watched from there, the way we used to, my kids used to when we were doing it back there in the 60s.
We used to live in Hadley Wood, Hertfordshire, and of course my children were allowed to watch, no problem, to watch anything. But there was a family across the road who wouldn't allow their little boy to watch Doctor Who. And so he used to come to our house. But the point was that when Doctor Who, here was a set, here was a big couch where they all sat to watch it. And when there was something really exciting in Doctor Who, this little boy used to leap up and bury his face down behind a cushion. Now, I think that was a sign of the series being very effective. I used to watch him to see what were the scenes that he found most unbearable. Because if the scene is unbearable to that extent, then you're on to a winner.
Yes. Well, my children had stages of this. One was like to take over future programs at the BBC. But I employ myself in a company called All Directions, and the idea of that name is that I'll direct anything anywhere. So any of you are budding producers, ring me up.
Ian. What was the question? What are you doing in the future? What plans have you got?
Survival, I think.
This is straightforward.
And writing stories.
They're just
mostly books just now.
They're just
Although I'm interested in a very tentative suggestion that's come up, I won't say what company, in a series of half-hour films. And I would be quite happy to do that, because writing books, as I say, is so lonely. But with writing books, nobody else interferes. If you don't, you do it and that's it, and that's the product. Whereas with a film, you've got a director, you've got artists, you've got all sorts of things between you and your audience. And it's nice to be able to talk closely to your audience. But as I say, sometimes it's awfully nice to get back amongst people, amongst noise, amongst sets, amongst directors, confusion and humanity. But as you get a little older, it gets a bit of it gets a bit more difficult, because you've got to drive to studios. And everybody down here. It's just nice to say that. It's a pity that there's nothing down here. I don't know how many of you from the southwest, but it's a great pity. There's not. In Melbourne, in Australia, they have created a worldwide famous, valuable form of entertainment. They make films, they make television, they do everything. What's wrong with Exeter?
Well, there's Plymouth, it's not far away. I was happy enough last year to come. I had a very happy time working with Television Southwest last summer, making a children's drama, and a very happy experience it was too. Unfortunately, Television Southwest, being one of the smaller commercial companies, doesn't have a lot of money or clout when it comes to planning and can't get enough drama together. There are people there who'd love to do more, so keep pressing your local television station to give you more drama. And I'll come and direct it.
On that note, I'm going to say thank you, Christopher Barrett, Minnie and Stuart.
Oh, good entrance, good entrance. Get out of the way. I've got a zoom lens on my camera.
Oh dear.
Can you see right in the sun?
No. But
Wrong way
stand
round.
this side.
You should be there, and I should be there.
We're not allowed to. We're not allowed to.
Well, I thought it was quite sad, but 50, you know, when Dwight Edger was, I thought it's quite sad to see the back of you just going down this like corridor or whatever it was. So I was quite.
You thought it was good, did you?
Oh, it was brilliant because I
Did
thought it started about 4 stories earlier when you were
Yes.
back to the Time Lords and
Yes.
from that point that there was going to be some kind of a problem, and the fact that it was so sudden in the end was, I think, quite brilliant.
Oh, that's good. You see, I mean, when you're in it, you're so close to everything, you're so involved, and you're, you know, you all you do is think of all the other possibilities. Of course, as an audience, you watch what is put in front of you. So you're in a better position in a way to make a reasonable. But anyway, no one else put their hands up, so clearly there are people who didn't think it was all that brilliant.
Sequence. I mean, was that your last scene?
I think it might have been. I think they might for once have saved that as the last. I know it was awfully tear-jerking. It's horrible. I watch other things now. You know, it's when somebody is being written out of some soap, and I think, oh God, you know, there they're going, and it's all awful. They won't see each other anymore. It was terrible. I mean, I hated doing that last bit.
You find it difficult acting in a story that really consists of CSO and sheets and everything else?
I quite like all that. Sure, Tom loves working with CSO sheets, not real people. Actually, I enjoyed it. I mean, I liked all the technical side of things. I love talking to the specialists, you know, the effects people and the sound people and the cameramen. They're always terribly interesting to talk to. They're often much more interesting to talk to than other actors. Because they asked Tom 20 million times and he said no 19 million times. They thought, oh, we'll ask Tom. Because they knew he wouldn't go on them if I was there. Because he's bonkers. But it was fair enough. I mean, I suppose he thought, oh God, not her again. They had enough of me back. So then they started to ask me. And that was quite nice actually. And they just asked, and they wrote and said, do you want to come and do one? Having given up writing to him, they thought, well, let's have a go.
You're saying that early on they're doing American legends quite grueling.
They're quite exhausting because they're very big and an awful lot of people. You start sort of at dawn, and then by lunchtime, when what you really want to do is go and put your feet up and eat something on your own and sort of have a bit of a rest before the next onslaught. What they tend to do on those is have they're called celebrity lunches or something, and they have this huge room with sort of round tables, and at each table are about 10 people who are fans who paid some god-awful fee to come and sit next to you at lunch, don't they? And they have each one of us at each table, you know, like there's Peter Davison at one table and me at another, and so however many people, 6 or 7 of the Doctor Who people say. And you sit down at this table and you think, oh thank God, I have something to eat. And the cameras start clicking and you think, oh no, I can't. So you're spinach sticking out of your teeth, you know. So you're sitting there going, I'll stuff it, you know, I'm never going to be able to eat this. I'll grab a sandwich later. And on top of that, because they're suddenly so close to you, and the conventions, it's not like this, you know, where everybody's friendly and I chat to you walking around this place, and it's all easy, and we all, you know, you get to know people a bit, and you sort of can say, hello again, I'm glad you come back, you know, or whatever. There, it's just so massive that you don't have that sort of relationship. Suddenly, 9 of these people find themselves sitting around a table with this mega being that they think, and they think, and they sit there, and so they hide behind their cameras as you're going, and they don't dare speak to you, so you find yourself saying, it's really nice of you to come to this convention. Where do you come from? You say sort of generally, and there's a deadly silence. So you can't do that. So you say, where do you come from? And they say, I come from Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, wonderful. I've never been there. Is it not? So you find yourself interviewing them. It's an absolute nightmare. And you sort of think, and where do you come from? I come from Berlin. And this goes on, and by the end of it, you're absolutely shattered. You know. Then I worked out a brilliant wheeze, you see, at these things, because I thought, when I sit down at this table, I'd say, now look, and you make it totally conspiratorial. I'd say, this is a very big room, and there's Peter Davison over at that table, and Colin Baker over there. Now, our table has got to be the one that's having the good time, okay? Because we've got a lot of noise at this table and excitement. I want them to be terribly jealous, and I want everyone at the other table to say, why are they having such a good time? So while they're sitting there all quiet and they're not eating their lunches, we must tell jokes, and even if there's nothing funny at all, we must laugh and just sort of, just talk a lot, you know, get very, very noisy, and go on and on and on, and they joined in with that, so it was a sort of game. And it literally happened, you'd hear Peter at the other side saying, what's going on at that table? Why are they having such a good time? It was wonderful, and it would buck up the whole room, but God, it's an effort, you know, at the end of it, you sort of think, oh, please God, let me go and sit down. And you can't. You then have to go into another panel and do another thing, and that goes on sort of for 3 days solid. And by the end of it, you're a kind of dribbling wreck. You can't even spell your own name when it comes to the autograph ceremony. And you sort of think, well, this is all absolutely wonderful, but I think I might be going to die any minute. They are exhausting. The most disappointing was that half these fans were downstairs saying, oh yeah, they're all rolled off, you know, they're all photocopies. No one signed them for real. And I thought, what was going on in this room up there? It was all sort of writers' crowds. John Nathan Turner was writing out John Nathan Turner. By about 4,000, he was writing JNT. Absolutely.
Is it sort of personalised and improved the work?
Yeah, I doodled on them, and I got into terrible trouble. They said I was defacing the person. I mean, I wasn't putting moustaches on Janet Field. I really wasn't. You know, I was being really nice about it, and they said, oh, will you please leave the posters alone, not deface the posters, this is not funny. So I think it was very funny, and I think people will know now, you know, I mean, I'm well known for illustrating things, why can't I put something on it? He said, you're defacing the posters, law.
What actually was it called?
I'm doing another book, which I'm working on embroidery. And acting-wise, I mean, you just don't know. The last job I did, as I said earlier, I auditioned for Thursday, got on the Saturday and started work on the Monday. This profession's become so crazy and kind of last-minutey, and things work like that now. You just don't really, you're not able to plan in advance what you're doing. So I really don't know the answer to that.
Anna Wood, this was your lunch, right?
I've been lovely.
The West, that's over there. My wrist over there. Bloody cheek.
No, but it might wake up thinking. No, nothing will wake up.
Oh, that's fine.
Amy form still, or what?
What's wrong? Let's get a form.
Yes.
You've got a light mode on yours.
I've got a... Have you seen this? Looks like a meeting of the Ian Levy Appreciation. Why not?
my time in the ride with I come and sparkle again. TV room now. So the smoke have we had big booms?
Miles.
The visitation and pyramid of Mars.
These will do, fine. You also said the 3 doctors and image of the event. Right, we're not doing the scores after the slip writers. Next one's all about revenge of Cybermen. Not the second video. How long did Harry say the corpses had been dead? Miles. No. Big exaggeration, I think. No, you're still exaggerating. 2 days is actually the closest answer. I'm not going to give it to you. It's 2 to 3 weeks. What was the name of the beacon? Yes. Never, correct. You have to join the quiz, have you?
Can we clear the space, please? Space, please. Just coming through. Clear space, please. We'll shake hands with one of them. Get out of the way. Shake it, please.
It's been a long time. And that's all the thanks I get.
Come out, where you are!
I came out years ago. I see you've taken the plunge. Now what? Well, that's me done. I'll go home now, thanks.
Can we run the way, please?
For your next trick.
I will juggle an egg.
Follow me! Follow me!
Other way.
Take me to your rescue. Take me. How embarrassing.
Yes, Gary, tell me. Massacre is correct. Now going to look at Frontiers. We're up to date. Who played the character of First Officer Brazen? Peter Gilmore is correct. What was the only item left after TARDIS was taken by the Tractators? The hat stand. Why did Turlough have bad memories of the Tractators?
They take memories of planets.
Well, within the comics industry, I think any work is good work and is not to be sniffed at. And I think that it's been well, when you've had people like Dave Gibbons, John Midgeway, and all the guys who I can't remember the names of in between working on the strip, then there's nothing snobbish about it. But you know, if you can follow them in those series, you're doing okay. The snobbery comes, I think, from outside the comics, really. The comics are looked down on by some people, particularly think the thing with comics is that they have had that attitude of TV comic and Mighty Moth for such a long time in this country, whereas in Mighty Moth, in the you remember as well. Be quiet, I told you were a shade. I was a spectrum shade. One of the things with comics in this country is that it has been aimed at the kids market for such a long time, starting with Beano, well not before the Beano and Danny, back in the 1890s, those comics started, but they were specifically aimed at children and have been ever since. Whereas on the continent, where the visual comics are far more popular, I mean, there's such a anybody's been to France and you've gone into a bookshop, half the content is visual material. Now whether that's because French people can't read or because they simply like comics, I think it shows that there is a potential to do a lot more with them, but we just haven't got that far. And I think perhaps we've done ourselves a disservice in the past by not writing well for comics, not writing towards a certain standard. I mean, Alan Moore, if anybody's not familiar, must be familiar with Alan Moore's work. Watchmen and, well, a lot of stuff from Marvel. I mean, but there again, you see, Alan Moore's first comics work was actually Scooby-Doo, so I think, exclusively revealed here. In other places, I mean, you work your way out. But what I'm saying is that we've done ourselves a disservice by not writing intelligent comics perhaps in the past, and I hope that we can change that slightly, and with the comic strip of Doctor Who, aim it more towards the way the programme has appeared on TV without losing the imagery that you can get out of a comic strip.
What do we need to make sense? Why don't you open?
To open sale registration desk at 10p each. So can I introduce you once again to your interviewer today, that's Mr. Gary Russell. Mr. Gary Russell.
Sorry, Gordon. Sorry, Gordon Roxburgh. Sorry, Gordon. Right. I'm going to sit at this end this time. Move the dirty glass. Right. Following on from yesterday's panel, will you please give another warm welcome to Ian Stewart Black and Christopher Barry. It's a bit of a steep climb, I think. You need Sherpa Tenzing to give you a hand. Whichever you like. Well, we should go for using on a bit.
Size models are going to be used during the shot, whether we can best achieve it on a small model, a medium-sized model, and full-size leg. We took the full-size leg. By the way, we took the full-size leg all the way to Switzerland on a lorry, and had to get a crane that could get up to the mountain village where we were. We had to measure the bridges, whether this crane could go under and get up there. But we had to take a full-size leg for some of the shots we shot on location in Switzerland. Obviously, we would have been much happier being able to do that on the small scale things, but it seemed that's the best way of doing it. So everything was very carefully visualized. Say we had the paint box and almost unlimited time, it seemed to me, in the visual effects studio, which recently opened just before Trump was. They like official secret set, so I think we should steer by on that. No, I think we have people with imagination, people without. People have their careers to follow. Jonathan Cowell's career followed in on his undoubted prowess as producer of BBC Two classic series, which he inherited from
What effect do you think, if any great effect, Doctor Who has had on your life and your career? Christopher first.
It's certainly, I mean, if it weren't for Doctor Who fandom, I certainly wouldn't be here this weekend. I'd probably be tilling my garden. It's very nice to come out and be applauded in this way. It's the only television program that I've ever made in over 30 years of being television director that's ever remembered, quite honestly. It's such an ephemeral medium. I have other programs that I would wish were remembered as much, but there isn't that body of good souls like yourselves who are prepared to give them airtime and perpetuate their memory. And for that I'm obviously filled with a certain amount of rather humble pride. It's a surprise to me. One certainly beavered away at the time. And one cried one's heart out. I sort of thinking over things that might, excuse me, get asked me this weekend about my memories of the Savages. And one strong memory I have is after the last episode of the Savages, which involved the destruction of the laboratory, which had to be done as a one-off because it really was a literal destruction of the set. And it didn't go as well as I wanted, and I was outside, sort of left after I'd had a drink and was unwinding, Riverside Studios. And as I was going to go home, I got into the car. Verity Lambert came running out after me, and she sort of put her arm around me and knelt beside the car and said, "Look, for God's sake, drive carefully." She said, "Drive home. It wasn't bad, it was lovely." And she, was a wonderfully supportive, was trying to cheer me up and say it was all right, and it really was going to work because I was suicidal. That's all.
Right, thank you. Ian, so what effect do you think Doctor Who, if any, has had on your life and career? Hold any special meaning?
Oh yes, because although I'm not supposed to say this because I find Doctor Who attracts young people very much, attracts children very much. It has got the element of a fairy story running through it, which is very powerful. And Doctor Who was enjoyed in my family, my children, very much when it was, and I told the story yesterday about my children didn't think I was a writer, or certainly not a good writer, because I'd never written for Doctor Who, which was really the reason that I was so keen to do it. I got great pleasure out of doing this, great pleasure really out of getting the respect of my own children, which I did through this Doctor Who. At the same time, as far as this gathering of Doctor Who fans, this amazes me. The ones people I've spoken to know far more about Doctor Who, the history, the ramifications, the setup, than I do. So I feel that they are the Doctor Who people, and in a sense, I'm an outsider, and all I did was come in, write the stories, and go away again. Another person asked me, they said, "Did you have any idea when you were doing Doctor Who that 26 years later, so on, so on, so on, so on?" No, of course I didn't. You might just as well say of another series, let's say that the first one I did, Inspector Fabian of Scotland Yard, or a later one, the Sir Francis Drake series, when you're working on them, you have no idea that they may be picked up. The feeling I had for Doctor Who was exactly the same as the one I had for Sir Francis Drake, Danger Man, At the Outsiders, Castaway. Or, as you're working on them, they are your world at that particular moment. You're not thinking, in all honesty, you're not thinking about how it's going to be in 10, 20 years' time. You're hoping that the audience you're writing it for are going to enjoy it and appreciate it. And that's all. I can't pretend that it has a greater significance for me than Danger Man or Sir Francis Drake. I love doing it, and if it ever started again, I'd love to do it again.
Before we go any further, Gordon, pop down here.
Okay, I'll pop over.
You pop down. Gordon is going to do a little bit of auctioning for us. Explain what it's all about.
I have £20 in the middle for the worksheets. 25 over here. 25. Get 40 for the first one, not to get 40 for the second. I get 25 at the moment.
27.
27? You say?
Yeah.
27. 27. Who round up to 30? 27 at the moment in the middle, £27 for the water machines.
30.
30 Japanese yellow, and 30. £30 at the moment, £30,
35.
35 in the middle, 35 in the middle.
Can you do
Yes?
That you want to buy.
You've come to complain about a dead fancy.
Oh, hello. I've never met you before.
No.
Would you like to buy any of these fanzines?
No. That's ruined, isn't it? No, it's
You bastard.
It's very good, yes. So sort of walk up and down a bit then.
Well, this is very good.
Yes.
But this is probably the best.
Yes, it is.
Have you heard much about this?
Yeah.
Yes, he said it's complete
for
bullshit.
several weeks you've been telling me about it, yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a picture in here by the infamous Brian Hudd. Brian Hudd. Have you heard of Brian?
Yes, I have.
Really dreadful fellow. Dreadful fellow who works for Scaro.
Oh my God!
God!
Who let him in?
Oh, sorry. I meant to spit on Scaro. God. Sorry.
Say it.
Get in.
How does it feel being a mutant? What? How does it feel being a mutant?
Tell me. You tell me. Is there a new battery in this?
Yeah.
That's my voice, Ollie.
No.
That's a resonance plug. Will you bring it closer to my bill so my water can observe it?
Let's progress with the next guest panel today, and a slightly different interview, and you've probably seen him lurking there in the corner. So come in, Mr. Dalek.
Thank you, Gordon. It was my pleasure being introduced by you. It makes a change from Nick Briggs. Greetings, all. I am now about to introduce a personal friend of mine, aide to my creator, Peter Miles.
I miss you, Devon. How do I get in, folks?
These are steps. There is more I can do.
Which one? And do they work? Do these work? Oh, yes. This one is for Michael. This is Michael. Before this repellent creature on my left dares to speak to me, I welcome all most cordially. And if there's got reverberation or echo on this, I'll get rid of it because I can project very clearly. In fact, I prefer using hall projection as a theatre actor more than I do using mics. Never mind. Publicly, apart from the warm welcome between you and I'm starting with an enormous thank you of deep appreciation to David Trigger and his friends for inviting me. There are 27 years of Doctor Who, and Davros and I should have been here today, and Davros is too busy earning money, which I'm not at the moment. Swine. And I appreciate it enormously. It might, it's not supposed to sound bland. Those who know me well say, oh, it's him again, but I do appreciate it enormously that I'm even invited, because there's so many smashing artists in the 25 years of Doctor Who.
I was looking through a book in London this week of people who've been in it that I'm not associated with. My God, what a list of people. They're not all working, I can assure you, because I ring up people regularly on the grapevine as to who's working tonight. And you'd be surprised who's sitting at home tonight, last night. So I'm very delighted to be here, quite honestly. I want to get that one clear for a start, if necessary. Are you still breathing in there?
I am still breathing. Just about.
Right.
I think the microphone will be okay on the table.
Yeah, well, I've got my cordial greeting over with and my thank yous to David. I'll probably say it again. There'll be a plug later on for a rather stunning audio-visual coming out in 1991, produced by Gary Russell. I'm sorry, Michael Brackett Stavros, who lives a mile or two from me, as indeed does Liz Sladen, Brian Miller, John Leeson. Michael sends you his best wishes, and is sorry he's not with me today, as indeed I am, because I do look on us as a double act, since it is Genesis which is bubbling to the surface all the time, whether it's on satellite or in your video stores in 1991, which is what's going to happen, I'm told. More money?
Yes.
Yes, but who wants a book of stamps, you know, marked BBC on the back? Point taken. Although, as my friends here know, I've done twice as many with Pertwee as I did with Mr. Tom Baker. But Genesis is the massive success one, as some of you might know. Anyway, I've said enough, haven't I? Right, Dalek, Abbott and Costello, Morecambe and what? Yes, I'm listening.
Right then, your first question. Are you prepared? You will answer my questions. The first question is, when did you decide to become an actor?
I'm just intrigued as to what incestuous relationship there is between Davros and this Dalek, because very similar. My first audition, and I'm not ashamed to say it, was at the Old Vic in 1961 to be a spear carrier before the National Theatre became there with Lord Olivier. I'm glad I didn't take the spear carrying, because I ended up at the Birmingham Repertory Theatre, directed by John Harrison. And my first part was the Griffin in Alice Through the Looking Glass, in which I had to dance the lobster quadrille and sing at the same time. I should have committed suicide had I realized it's very difficult to sing and do the lobster quadrille at the same time in your first part. Everybody sitting here knows Lewis Carroll intimately. Alice Through the Looking... You won't get me on that. I'm not going into Lewis Carroll today, although I do like it. And said, "Look at this." So I looked round. He'd got his right hand and pierced his hand into the bayonet. This is a true story. And said, "My hand is stuck." And they took him away. They took him away. And they took him out. He won his case for being disordered, mentally disordered or something. It was a brilliant way of getting out of 2 years, going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right.
Why didn't you stay on in the army?
I was bored stiff after 24 hours, and I stuck it for 23 months.
How did your first part in Doctor Who come about?
Blimey. Was that in colour?
That was the Solarian.
Was it in colour?
Yes.
Oh. I forget how my friendship with Timothy Coombe, BBC staff director, came about. One of the few television directors who is a personal friend as opposed to being a working colleague. I forget how that came about. It's too long ago. I was a great friend of Timothy Coombs, and he was keen on my acting. Maybe he saw me at Liverpool, where I obviously, like most actors, we are theatre actors first and foremost, so that people do watch us, and we don't know they're watching us sometimes. That's probably what happened. I had done some television before Doctor Who, of course.
Would you like to enlighten us?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to enlighten us about it?
Yes.
Yes.
What, TV?
Yes.
Yes, I enjoyed things like Sherlock Holmes, but that was not with Douglas Wilmer, that was with Peter Cushing and Nigel Stock, with whom I also did The Doctors and Owen MD later on, when Nigel became a television name as a doctor. But in those days he was Dr. Watts, and Cushing was Holmes, and working himself to death almost, working on that. And a wonderful actor called Nigel Green, who is 6'2" and a world heavyweight boxer type, literally, professionally trained boxer, was in it with me once, because I did, like people who know me, I seem to do several episodes of whatever series you name. I don't know how I got round to doing several episodes. I kept flitting into several episodes of things. Nigel Green said to me on Horsington Hill, which is behind Hoover's off the A40, on location, I'm going to knock you out with an uppercut. We're going to do it in one take, and I'm going to knock you out. I shall miss your chin by 1/4 of an inch. Trust me, I was professionally trained. You think I'm going to say that I was knocked out, but it was done in one take. Nigel Green did the uppercut, all 6'2" of him, and missed my chin by 1/4 of an inch brilliantly, and it looks as though, because it looks very good on take. On another episode of Doctor Who, when I was Dr. Sherlock, I was a defrocked alcoholic clergyman roaming in a barn where I was in hiding, and the hero arranged a secret wedding in the barn with his girlfriend, which I was going to participate in, until another hero turned up in the barn to stop the wedding and pointed a Dick Turpin type gun at me, a genuine pistol thing, you know, the great big heavy thing of what year is Sherlock Holmes? 1888? Is it?
Possibly.
And my line was, put that gun away, you dirty double-crossing swine, Carruthers. That's the true story. I had to say that with a straight face. I remember trying to shove a rapier in the stomach of Ian Cuthbertson in The Borderers when he was lying prostrate asleep on a couch. And at that time, Ian Cuthbertson was several stone heavier than he is now. And Ian's a mate of mine, so he doesn't mind me saying that 15 years ago he looked like a beached whale when he's lying down. It was like that, and I had to stick a rapier this way. And as I stuck the rapier in his stomach, I was shot in the back by a blunderbuss, which they had to fire. I enjoyed that. Later on, I did the Cane Mutiny with Ian Cuthbertson on a big tour in this country. You're a devil. Yes, I'm terrified of that scene for any poor unfortunates that have seen Silurians. Because I do associate it more with Bette Davis doing overacting, or Paul Darrow after a couple of ciders. I don't know. I was half an hour in makeup having my face diseased before my death, because it's tricky putting that stuff on your face which has to dry like a double skin, and then paint over it meticulously. And then, because it took half an hour, the director said, I've only got 3 minutes for this damn scene. We're running overtime in the studio. So the onus was on me to act it. So I was a bit terrified in those days. I was pent up a bit. But I mean, if you hated that scene where I tried to strangle Nick Courtney, you're welcome, because I think it was a bit outrageous, actually. I don't like watching that scene. It's a bit over the top. I noticed it was exuberant in your opinion, because your hat nearly came off then. Well, I'll ask him. I'm going, he's in Panto up the road from where I live this December. I'll go and see him in December. And I heard from him a few weeks ago before he went to New Zealand. Months or whatever it was then. Weeks, I think. Yeah, Pertwee's an actor that is like Brian Miller and Michael Wisher to me. We are friends as well as colleagues. You know, every time I meet him, it's a very cordial thing between us. Yeah. So Pertwee and I get on like a house on fire. I didn't giggle as much as I did in Genesis. What went on around the pillars in that scene where our death in the climax to Genesis with Dennis Chinnery and I was nobody's business, hanging around behind a pillar. And Dennis would say, have you heard this one, Peter? What was that, said Michael Wisher, who couldn't hear a damn thing anyway and was sweating profusely, thinking he'd missing the fun, which of course he was, because he was suffering and we weren't. Sorry, I've gone off at a tangent. I don't know what you asked me. Oh, Pertwee, yes. Yes. Yes, Pertwee's always been... Pertwee and Baker are my favourite... Baker, brackets, Tom, are my favourite Doctor Who's. I don't mind admitting it. I admire all the others immensely as artists, but Baker and Pertwee are my favourites, yeah. By a long way.
What do you remember of your appearance in the invasion of the dinosaurs? Stop that sniggering!
What I remember about it is a thing called Colour Separation Overlay, CSO, where they said, that's me and Pertwee are going to go into space forever at the end. You stand there, you two. That's Pertwee and I, and they put two pictures together. One is of space, I think, which is a light yellow colour tarpaulin thing, about 20 feet in dimensions. And if you stand on that or lie on it, they can then put another shot over it of another picture, and it looks as if you're floating or something. It's a double thing, isn't it? The technicians here can explain it better to me. But in our last scene together in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, Pertwee and I, if you look closely, we are slightly shaking, but that's because he just told me another joke. It had nothing to do with Tremors, plug for a film that's going around at the moment, called Tremors. Yes, there's a bit of giggling goes on, but we're all highly professional, I can assure you, although we giggle like you lot. Yes?
Before you appeared in Genesis of the Daleks, you also appeared in Colditz. What else and where did it come about?
What was the noun you said before Genesis? I was in something before Genesis, what was that?
Colditz.
Colditz?
Yes.
Colditz, well, those who saw Colditz, I was a major in the SS, or was I an Oberleutnant, I forget, or a Leutnant. I forget my rank now, I think there were two of us came from Himmler's office in Berlin to visit Colditz to tell Bernard Hepton if he would accept political prisoners in Colditz. And he said, get lost to the SS, that's what he said.
How unpleasant.
Yes, quite. And after rehearsing it for the usual 2 weeks with Vic Ritellis in an English accent, like your own personal accent, the office in America rang up on the day of final run-through and said, this is, how about, I forget if he said do it in a German accent. Yes, I think he said, could we all do it in a slight German accent? I forget. It's too long ago now, which worried a lot of people, including me really. I had to be a German in Moon Base 3, but God knows what it came out as. If anybody's old enough here to have seen Moon Base 3, I forget. I had to be a German scientist on the moon in that. My German's better now. Michael Wisher was in Moon Base 3, but I never saw him once. It was in Ealing Studios that the moon surface was built, and I never met him. I was with Tom Kopinski and Donald Houston and John, a very tall guy, a very strong actor. He's about 6'4". John, a powerful actor in his late 40s or early 50s. Sorry about that, John. I'll tell you in a minute. What? Who? Hitler? Yes. Yeah, afraid so, yes. I don't know, I think Hitler should be fatter in the face than I am. I've got a high cheekbone like Cushing, whereas Hitler to me is a square blob. Right down, the whole way is a square blob, a crossword puzzle. Well, it's no good saying I played Hitler, because it's on the cutting room floor at Twickenham Studios. It's never been shown in The Eagle Has Landed. So when the video comes, oh, it is out, yeah. You won't see me in it anyway. I played Hitler at the Edinburgh Festival, at the Edinburgh Fringe. I was kidnapped before World War II by Freud, and he brought me to Hampstead to try and stop World War II. And Adolf Hitler was kidnapped, that was me, and he hypnotised me on a stretcher to try and get me back to childhood to stop World War II. And he failed miserably, as you probably know. Yes?
Have we any questions from the audience?
Was I on the Murder of the Orient, did you say? Sorry. Sorry?
How did your appearance in Genesis of the Daleks come about?
Ah, well, by 1975, I'd been in and out of television a lot. So obviously directors start to notice certain people that keep peering on the box at home. So that's sort of in a way easier. Maloney already must have known me quite well, because I moved over to ITV as well in various things. In Yorkshire Television, ATV. I get Elstree, I get mixed up now. All the companies have changed. London Weekend Television I did. I've been in more police things than as much as sci-fi too. Eternal, Cops and Robbers things, all those Z cars and Softlies and Sweeneys and things. Although I enjoyed those immensely. Immensely.
What did you play in the Sweeney?
In the Sweeney, I came from Scotland Yard to check on John Thor's efficiency time and Dennis Waterman's, their efficiency. So they took me into a pub in London and got me stone drunk because I was teetotal, and then carried me out in a taxi because I was worse for wear. So I couldn't report back to Whitehall that they were taking too much time on the case.
It's like watching it again after such a long time.
Oh dear, that's what was it like? Yes. Well, it's not for me to say, is it? Davros, Wisher brackets, Davros, Wisher, Michael brackets, Davros, is better at describing that story than me, because he's an addict, a great addict of that story, as indeed a lot of people are. Not for me to say. I mean, we're involved in need we say, in a story that's brilliantly written, very well put together, with one of the best casts, massive cast, but one of the best casts. Tom Baker in the ascendancy, Liz Sladen at her peak, Ian Marter, God rest his soul, at his peak. Wonderful people in it too. Big cast, as you well know. The whole thing knitted together like something well constructed from the word go. There was no time wasting. It just zinged along right through. Just things happen like that sometimes. It's happened to me on stage in Oh, What a Lovely War, which I adored when I was at Lincoln. Okay, so only the people in Lincoln saw it, but my God, that's one of the things that I and 14 other people are deeply proud of. It just happens sometimes. It happens with football teams. A team suddenly gels together in the most incredible way. It's called teamwork. I remember John Savidon's aftershave. No, I say it's very naughty of me, but I mean, he approached John Savidon in the trial for Travis. He approached me on recording day, John Savidon, who played the judge for the trial for treason of Travis. And I nearly fell backwards. And then he said quietly, "Peter, I am wearing the most expensive aftershave on sale in Great Britain." And I said, "You're not joking. Unfortunately, it's upstaged by the double gin you just had." What was I talking about? Oh yes, that was a fine kettle of fish, Blake 7, yes. Because I was a friend of, I was already great friends with Paul Darrow and Gareth Thomas, quite literally, because Paul and I were with the early Doctor Who's with Pertwee. Was it Silurians? Yes, yes, I knew Paul terribly well. He always made me laugh, Paul Darrow, in the nicest possible way. I mean. And Gareth Thomas and I had been resident together at Liverpool in at least 11 or 12 shows there. So I knew Gareth very well. Gareth had been Brer Bear, and I'd been Brer Fox in the Tales of Uncle Remus. And I kept meeting. Gareth also used to live near us in Ealing too. Well, that's a very hugely successful sci-fi series, which I have the pleasure of just being in a few episodes, which are going to be shown again, aren't they? Is that right? Or they're coming out on... They're all coming out. All the things we're talking about are coming out again, you know. Including Blake 7.
You also recreated the part of runtime from Blake 7 from an audio documentary. Can you tell us a little about that plug?
I'm wary of doing that because I might miss out in 2 minutes the details that requisite for the nice people here about this audiovisual, except that it's excellent, about Blake 7. And you, if anybody wants to speak who's a fanatic of Blake 7, please talk to Alistair Locke here, who's in the front row later on, and to Alan, who is secreted in that disgusting Dalek there. Horrible thing there, because they are the expert producers of this excellent audiovisual. So that's 2 audiovisuals I can plug with the absolute 100% conviction that they're damn good. I say that very strongly indeed. Gary Russell's production and Alistair Locke's and Alan's production.
Thank you for the plug. I will give you the money later. Do you enjoy attending conventions?
You asked very good questions, Alan.
Do I?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, so apart from I could well have thanked David Trigger and his great colleagues by phone in Ealing and said that quite happily, you know, I'm polishing the ceiling at the Royal Opera House Saturday night for some money and I couldn't possibly turn up, or in a swimming gala, or what the hell, you know, you could get out of it. So it must mean that I want to come, right?
Right.
Well, of course, I do come as only a half of a team. I mean, that is 50% of me here, the other 50% Stavros. Of course, we are a team, as you well know, so it's a shame that Michael's not here. I've literally enjoyed every single one. I've never been to so many as in 1990. Durham, Derby, Cardiff, Birmingham, Surrey, and here. They've all been excellent, yeah. I've enjoyed them immensely, of course I have.
Genesis of the Daleks was your last appearance in a Doctor Who story. Why did you not return after the program?
Back to Doctor Who?
Yes.
Because an artist has no say personally on a private level whatsoever. None at all. We're in a business where the power lies with certain people. If you want me to name them, we'll be here all night, but I mean, it's nothing to do with me at all. I have no say at all. None at all. I was with an agent for 9 months 2 years ago, a new chappie who should be nameless, who put me up for the part of Doctor Who himself in a certain type of wig which I could draw for you. It's I used it once when I played Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons, and it wasn't short cut like the 15th, 16th century. It was fairly long, but it was so real that you couldn't. Nobody would have told in the street that it wasn't. London in the streets round near the Beeb. And Colin and I get on very, very well. Yeah. I'm very grateful. It's amazing. It's because I'm friends with the guys I've mentioned, like John Leeson and Brian Miller, Liz Sladen, and Ian Marter, had he still been alive, because he lived round the corner as well. They all lived round the corner from me. It's amazing. Gareth Thomas too. Amazing.
Were you there first when they moved in?
I was always there, yes. Yes?
You also uploaded Brian Croucher. What was that in?
Brian Croucher? Yes, Brian Croucher, yes. Brian Croucher, yes. YTV, Colin Blakely, who is also deceased, starred in The Hanged Man, taken from the tarot cards of the tarot card The Hanged Man. And Brian Croucher were professional crooks in that, specialists in homemade bombs, breaking safes. We were hired by Colin Blakely to do a super raid in a firm, directed by Mark Miller, who was Britain's answer to Otto Preminger. Mark Miller stands in the centre of the drill hall rehearsal room with a cheroot in one hand, a la Clint Eastwood, and his other hand raised, getting ready to do this, because 55 feet away, somebody whispered in a corner during rehearsals, and all he had to do was, and they didn't whisper. He was a disciplinarian like Otto Preminger, who during the filming of St. Joan, the film, after several days of setting up the biggest set of the burning to death of St. Joan, near to take one with several thousand extras, somebody coughed and he screamed. Otto Preminger screamed, as you probably know, "Who coughed?" And his assistant came running up to him and said, "3 of the horses." To which he screamed, "Sack the horses." I don't know why I told that, that just came into my brain, I'm sorry. Gary Russell and, yes, and Co.
What was Bergerac like to do?
Absolutely delightful. John Nettles is absolutely superb. He and John Thor, I vote, as the 2 most professional male actors carrying the responsibility of a show on your shoulders that I've ever come across, John Thor and John Nettles. They work 24 hours a day on the series, and whenever you meet them, if your scene is at 6 o'clock at night, they are as affable, on the ball, cool, with it, as they were at 8 a.m. They are absolutely superb, those 2 gentlemen. I have terrific admiration for both of them. John Thor and I also did Around the World in 80 Days on stage and had a ball. I wasn't, if you know Around the World in 80 Days, one of my favourite shows. John was Passepartout, and a superb actor called Clive Elliott was the leading Phileas Fogg. And I was the nutty detective that chased them round the world. I enjoyed that. I forgot what you asked me now. Terrible. Oh, Bergerac, yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, that was sunbathing time in the south of France. Lucky me that it wasn't on Jersey. It was in the south of France in summertime, and every other day off. So I had to go and enjoy myself. I was forced to go away and enjoy myself. It was one of the best hotels in France. It was the best food, best everything. Best.
Science motocross film.
Lost them. Oh, they're killing the mammoths! What bastards! I think in all the memory cheats. I think in all the memory cheats. Hi, Gary, I'm back. I think that was an announcement to say the bar's open. Way! Go for it! Why don't we just bring it out? Don't forget the movie. There's more room in there. When the review of the unit cake was enjoyed with dry
The ceremony opening.
Gene!
And our special guest is a unit cake. No, it's a you always know what's going on. You always know what's going on.
I told him that's what happened to me.
Enos is the dawn of time, dawn of time is Enos, the dawn of time, dawn of time.
I slammed the door. Keep my bottom pane in the glass, and the glass blew in one of the things.
Thinking all the memory cheats, memory cheats, memory cheats. Thinking all the memory cheats. Hello, Gary, I'm back. I seem to be kind of do. Joe, you stay here.
Yes, goodbye. See you tomorrow.
On sale for 2 half-pints of lager.
I'm sorry, Marcus.
2 half. Hang on, what?
I've got
I bought mine.
I don't know. Who doesn't?
Tell you well.
Really upset the bastard. And Jeremy Bentham was reading it and was laughing just as well as anybody else. Yeah.
Oh, that was like that. A Wiedersehen duck. Yeah. I was sitting behind Colin Baker and JNT and they were watching it, and they were both laughing this way, but up to a certain point when JNT got the storm off.
I'm Jewish as well. There's no cheese on me. Did I say that? Please.
Where's the comic look like this?
It's definitely grandpa and bread, isn't it?
Pudding. Where's the pudding? No.
Where's my topping?
Wait. Simon, where are you, Simon?
Voice.
No.
I think in all the
Okay, this is the man you sat with 2 years ago and 6 days ago.
I didn't sit with him, did I?
Somebody brings in a potato. Is this your parents?
The easiest way to show him up would be to put him on a table with other fancy letters.
And here is a special guest of honour, Roger Hancock.
He's back! Gary's back! Your arms fall off, your head's going off.
Do we have any
It's the first and fourth advert.
Pick a sheet.
Yeah, that's Jason.
You know, bad when you start vomiting, yeah, he turns around.
Gary nearly wet himself when Fred Clark came out. This Fred Clark.
Yes, amazing. Who's gone in
Close. It's 1985. Oh, sorry. Gary couldn't figure that on his own, could he?
Genuine phone boxes, absolutely genuine.
McCoy fans. You're not a big fan of Mr. McCoy, yeah? I wouldn't say that. I have a soft spot for him. Quicksand on Morecambe Beach. I'm one of the editors of Brave New World, and I write for DWB, Starby Are you interested in fandom coming back then if you don't actually like Sylvester McCoy? Well, there wasn't such a thing as Sylvester McCoy in my day when I 23. Stop laughing.
Must be that one. Oh, sorry.
So what's the turnover for a magazine like? Today it's bloody awful, quite frankly. Quite well. Mind you, the thing is, it's the first issue. We used to all be on Star Begotten, but we had a disamicable divorce. And we all marched off and set up Brave New World, so we're just starting out. You know, for the first issue, it's gone very well.
Yes, I'm Tim Monroe.
You're Paul Cornell, no, I know that.
Yes.
Or Paul Cornell, who's done the...
Oh, for that, yes. You mean when I dominated the bar, you see the mentalists?
Absolutely. Get the details. Get the details out, lads.
I better go and slit my throat now. You as well, Sam. Oh, sorry.
No, actually, Muslims are okay.
I saw it. Bastard!
Hey, Tim. Muslims are okay.
I want to do Kevin first.
Paramount hadn't held him back in America for one more week, doing read-ups on Best of Both Worlds. We'd have got him as a guest. I was really pissed off. I hate you, Martin. I hope you realise this. Mind you, what the fuck? I mean.
What was the sort of the opening bit? I saw the cliffhanger where he sort of just meets the ghost.
That's right, you get he's not, because very, very
whatever you do, don't make sure
we'll probably bring her along anyway. So
I think it's something to do with dining room or
Scotland died or something.
Scotland died, really good.
It's funny enough, I mean, the city in France has got completely flattened by the US Air Force. The US Air Force bombed the city or something. He threw the question back as an interview and made them look really stupid. Such a stupid question.
One real cunt. Did you see that one? It was World this week, recently, about land, corruption and sales of land. And this Tory had, there was this castle on the ground. I honestly don't think it's up there. They want one brown. Scottish Joe.
One of the two stand out people probably what been cooking as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's leading with it. He's so good because they expect so
It's a forward to seeing you next year.
Survival.
how small is the foundation children? Do I know? You can take it off the back. I was saying to David, either way we're going to my story here
That's a serious cake. Serious. I don't like ice cream. It's too sweet.
Are you still going to be around? Disappearing Misty retail, well, I don't know.
I've got a my first question is, it's really good. I believe you're the conversation you were very
And we hate it.
And we all said it was good. And we all said it was good 18 months ago. Not anymore. Tonight. Can I just ask you to design it? What do you want to ask now? Did you design it?
Kevin, wasn't it?
Well, whoever designed it anyway. Kevin's not here. And tonight we formally announced that this logo is no longer in use. A new neon logo next year. Yeah, but the Exo Space Doctor Who.
We're sticking together when you can't do
You didn't film that, did you?
like to buy any of these? No. No, it's you bastard.
Because I can project very clearly. I prefer using hall projection as a theatre actor more than I do using mics. Never mind. Publicly, apart from the warm welcome between you and I'm starting with an enormous thank you of deep appreciation to David Trigger and his friends.
And our special guest today. Hello, Gary, I'm back. Bastard! 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 Bastard!
Mind you, what the fuck, mate?
And tonight we formally announced that this logo is no longer in use.
Hi. No.
I don't. You see that little spot on my nose?
I'm just zooming on it. Yes, I can actually.
No, come on, Ryan.
I want to do it. My video. Now, what you do is you put your hand through there. You're holding it wrong. You put it on your shoulder. Right. Put your hand through there. Put it like that.
Oh no, I'm left-eyed.
Your left eye.
I don't like looking at this eye.
Oh, I see.
Right, how do you focus it?
Autofocus, isn't it? Just a minute.
How come it's in black and white?
It's a colour camera, but it's in black and white. Is it automatically focusing?
No. Is it like a blur?
Just a minute. Is it focusing now? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is now. The lives of the Exo Show.
We're in a play this week.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Well, fiasco, travesty, various other things. Oh,
Is it recording your voice?
No.
Right, Mark.
Hello, Stephen. Oh, Stephen. Oh, how long have you been here?
Why is it? Oh, well, anyway. How long have I been here? I'm already sad bastard. I've been here since about 2:30.
Come back to my room. Oh dear, oh dear. Hey, I've got this on tape.
No, I've been here since 2:30. I've been chatting really interesting to Mark P. Short.
Mark Short's here.
Thanks. Yeah, Mark Short. Yes, Mark. I've been having really interesting.
You mean the Mark P. Short?
I mean the Mark P. Short.
Oh wow, anybody else famous here? Is Alan Langley here?
No, Alan Langley's nowhere to be seen.
Isn't that a shame?
It's a real shame, isn't it?
I'm upset about that. I'm very upset. Nick Cooper even as well.
This is going to be a really interesting video record, isn't it?
Certainly.
Look, it's Pam!
This is the week.
Amanda, Mary, this is Pam. Thank you. The lovely Jamie Woolley. He's got his name changed by Deep Poet.
Go on, film the bastard.
I'll do a comment. Just a minute.
What are you focusing on live?
I'm focusing on Cornell talking to them on the I'm focusing on him. I'm focusing on Simon behind me.
Fancy bringing a video into the bar and then trying out the convention.
Look, I've got to put my video during the convention somehow, and this is the closest one.
Oh, is this what you're doing?
Well, it's just my college course.
Oh, right.
Sad, isn't it?
We should go downstairs and film the main hallway.
Will you go film someone else?
Sorry, Jeremy.
Hello. Well, personally, I'd rather be somewhere. It's sad, isn't it? It is really. Man needs a hobby, but why does he have to do it on a record medium? Hello. That missed. So I'm going to keep these before I see you've got to fix them. Right. I'll try to do something. Sleeping bag. Oh, actually, come in here, dude. sleeping down there.
You're sleeping down there? I'm sleeping.
You're sleeping in the bathroom?
I'm sleeping
I'm still back to the bathroom, really.
As I possibly can.
Where's Neil?
Oh, he's over the 7-pint limit.
Just think of Neil.
Just feel that. Just put your hand on that. Just put your hand, not the fucking video camera, you prat. Just feel it. Yeah. How does it feel to you?
Ooh, gorgeous. Gorgeous, Jonathan.
Ribbed and rubbery.
Oh,
Look, I've got this nipple here. Yeah, I'm going to regret that alone in the morning, I can tell you.
Simon,
what are you doing in there?
Simon.
That's my blanket. You can have it.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, fuck it. I was so privileged, so I didn't. You've got to give me a pillow.
I'm sleeping down there, Steve.
Okay, I don't really want it.
The bath's mine, man. I'm pissed off for sleeping around toilets. You get pissed on it with even. Oh, piss. I think I'm pissed on Tintin at Manoptica. You pissed on Tintin? Sorry.
So that was a big floppy one, wasn't it? Sorry? That was a floppy one. It was number 1. Number 1? It's not number 2 as well. No number 2. No number 2. No, I should wait till tomorrow night for that one. Cool. Sorry, just to avoid that happening tomorrow night, exactly how do you block this? Oh, it doesn't say it, doesn't it?
The running. It was. Oh no, it loses in the telling. Probably not. But you never know.
You never know. Perhaps
some of the people who live out here live there. Go and knock on the window. There's always some sad annoying wanker with the video camera. And it's
hello, sad annoying wanker with the video camera.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello. We've got to develop a morality one of these days.
Mate, oh yeah, me.
New thing, it's a fashion, everybody's doing it. Just film generally.
Free advertising, yeah.
Little Dave,
and here's the lovely Simon Coleman. Well, I'd be lovely and sprightly today if it wasn't for Jonathan Heads. He was bloody awful snoring last night. That's the novelty.
There must be something nasty that we can grab a load of them and put them somewhere.
I can't crack the obvious.
We could put one into the final hotel. Donated by the Gideon.
First from the first batch, 3 of the Time Worm novels, and I'm going to bring them up here in order of publication. So first of all, we'll give a warm welcome to Mr. Terence Dix. Secondly, author of the forthcoming Apocalypse, Mr. Nigel Robinson. And last but no means least, the author of, what's it called? Oh, Revelation, Paul Cornell.
Yay!
Right. Start with the class and work downwards. Terence. Terence, how did you get involved? How did Exeter come about?
Basically because Peter Darwin called me up and said, would I like to work on?
And you said? And when did you get the ideas for the Nazi story and everything?
Well, it's a period I'd always been interested in, and had in fact researched for another book which I hope to write on in Exeter. And since I was in a great rush as I was down in short of time, I thought, here is a cunning plan to use this research which I've already done, and use that as a background for the new story.
Was the idea of writing a totally original Doctor Who novel something you always wanted to do?
Not enormously, because there had always seemed to be, you know, an endless supply of Doctor Who's to be done, you know. But I think it was a bit of a shock to all of us when the last kind of nugget was dug out of the mine, you know, the last chipping, because you always felt with those 20-odd years of it that it would never come to an end. So it's not a thing, you know, that I thought about very much. I think I talked. Did we ever talk about it? We discussed it briefly. Yeah, it was always.
Yeah, be reticent.
Well, I won't tell them who wins in the end. And there's an officer of thought, and told Peter about his role already had in Doctor Who Monthly, and he seemed to like it, and we went from there.
So what is Revelation about?
Reticently. The Doctor, having got fed up with pursuing the Time Worm across the universe, decides to finally trap it and destroy it. The Time Worm thinks exactly the same thing about the Doctor. Their 2 traps occur at once, and somebody else is also playing more complex games than the 2 of them. So it's a book about 3 different traps, basically.
Well, I understood that. Peter, where did the Time Worm concept come from?
It was dreamt up between, well, it started, I suppose, how would you want me to say that? It started, the germ of the idea was in conversations I had with John Nathan Turner, right back at the beginning. We wanted a mechanism that would simply provide a simple but very reliable way of getting the Doctor from adventure to adventure. And the first thing we thought of was, let's just make it springing forward in time. And the first, initially it was simply a very regimented matter of saying, let's make it 500-year jumps. There's something that happens in the first book that makes the jump have to go forward 500 years at a time. Then we realised it was actually very mechanical and we could do something better than that. And I came up with the germ of an idea, which I then put to John Peel, and who then fleshed it out into the Time Worm. But that's all the time. I mean, the Time Worm, actually, the way it's been handled, particularly by John and by Paul, is a pretty frightening and formidable opponent. But in fact, I mean, all it is that it is a...
Oh, I should have gone to see the Terminator. Thank you, it says here. Yes. Where's Bill? Bill Cook, ladies and
Bill
gentlemen. Don't clap.
Through a row of seeking. Hey!
Up to the stage, he runs. Calm your nerves, and says, "It's Hines died. His friends describe his condition as satisfactory. However, by waving some money under his nose, he has recovered enough to perform his probate. Now please welcome a man whose name... Eh? Hum it. Have I gone too far?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so I'll go back then.
You can't get the talent nowadays.
Ever since Andre Previn went,
I know.
it's never been the same, is it? No.
Yes, I suppose so. Oh, worst of all, he could have been forgotten and not dead.
That was dreadful.
Really strong. Go away, Mark. Oh, no. Go away. Come on, Mum.
Hello, Mark. You're a complete dickhead with a camera attached to your eye like that.
It's actually...
So people keep telling me, you look a dickhead full stop. Ha!
Well, screwed up my nipple nuts and call me back.
Well, spin my nipple nuts and send me to Alaska. Give a smile for the camera, Paul.
This man's the star. He's the star now. He's done his first convention. It went down really well. the old fancy convention.
Stop moving your hands like this.
Yes. You did do a lot of really new
I didn't know it's not over. I thought it was
Oh, you did after that. Oh, I'm not surprised, because every time Gary said, oh, I'm going to sixpence. Oh my God, he's not going to say,
I'm floating.
Hey, Mark! It's cold outside! Ah, shit!
Open this fucking window or somebody fucking dies.
I wish I had that on camera.
But you haven't. Isn't this fun?
It is. We wandered along past all the other windows, videoing.
Hey, why not?
That's not a bad idea.
Oh, right. I'll see you guys later. Much later. Hello, Mark. First time you've actually been on this video.
I'm sorry?
First time you've actually been on this very badly focused, badly focused video.
It is, but it's because you haven't got to fill what looks like.
Right, I'm going to do a sort of zoom around now, actually, because...
Come here.
Sim, you just come here. I'm going to put... Right, you got full auto.